Chapter 897. Siege Battle. On the other hand, Noah rubbed his chin and smiled after Hasti brought back the wargame that was decided by the Gods' Council. That's good. Good. Hestia asked worriedly. That's a siege battle. The enemy will definitely send in a considerable amount of troops. Also, Apollo's spawn will be on the defending side. Can you really take down a city guarded by the elites of Apollo's spawn alone? One had to know that under normal circumstances, sieges were only used when there was no other choice. In order to take down an entire city, one would have to pay a huge price. After all, the attacking side needed a large number of siege weapons such as catapults, siege chariots, ballistas, and so on. They also needed to think of a way to break through the city gate and take down the city. On the other hand, the defending side not only had the absolute advantage, they also had the city as a barrier. A simple rain of arrows could cause a large number of casualties. Therefore, in a siege battle, one would have to prepare 3 times more troops and supplies than the enemy in order to take down the city. Although there was no gunpowder or cannonballs in this world, magic was not any weaker than gunpowder or cannonballs. Its power was even greater than that. So, as the one attacking the city, once Noah came to the bottom of the city, he would be bombarded with unimaginable magic and buried alive, right? In any case, a siege battle was too difficult for Noah. That was what Hestia and Baal thought. Commander, Baal mustered up his courage. Sure enough, let me fight. At least we can have one more person. You are a LV, one newbie adventurer. It's like nothing in a war, Noah declared mercilessly. I'll fight alone. This is something that has been decided. No one is allowed to object. After that, Noah stood up and walked towards the door. Hestia couldn't help but ask, "Where are you going?" "The dungeon," Noah said without looking back. 3 days. I don't have the time to waste playing games with that disgusting god. I don't know how much time I have to improve. Hence, when Noah completely ignored the wargame with the Apollonian spawn and entered the buried city for 3 days of training and killing time, the people in Eulalie's world had entered a lively atmosphere as if they were holding a festival. As the news of the upcoming wargame between Hestia's clan and Apollo's clan spread out, almost every place was talking about the wargame between the two clans. Basically, most people thought that Hestia's spawn, which only had 2 members, had no chance of winning against Apollo's spawn, which was hundreds of times more numerous. On the contrary, the gods seemed to be looking forward to an upset. They kept promoting how powerful Noadoria was. As a result, even the ordinary people in Eulalia began to know that Noah had the strength to contend with Elvis 7, and all of them became noisier. Under such circumstances, Apollo's spawn quietly left Eulalie. Not long ago, the guild had conveyed the location of the wargame. Therefore, as the defending side, Apollo's spawn began to set off in advance to prepare in their own city. This time, the wargame would take place in a ruin. It was a place built on a plain with no forests, no hills, and a walled city in the middle. Thousands of years ago, before God came to this world, in order to keep the cities and towns behind Eulalie away from the monsters that emerged from the big hole of the underground city without the Tower of Babel as a cover, or to stop them, they built a fortress near Eulalie. Although almost all of these walled cities had turned into ruins today, only this walled city was still more or less in use until a century ago, so it was still intact. This time, the wargame chose this walled city as the battlefield. It took a day for 110 people belonging to Apollo's spawn to arrive here. These 110 people were almost all the members of Apollo's spawn that could be used. The rest of the people who didn't come were either support, novice adventurers, or other members who were in charge of clerical work and couldn't play an effective combat role. After arriving here, these people began to busy themselves with the repair work of the city wall, or the storage and allocation of spare weapons, items, food, and so on. It could be said that the preparations were complete. Obviously, even if the situation was very favorable to Apollo, the god still didn't want to be overturned by unnecessary carelessness. Just like in the beginning, in order to get Noah, Apollo not only prepared to find trouble in the hotel, but also kidnapped Bear. From this point of view, Apollo did have some redeeming qualities. Thus, time gradually passed while Eulalia's gods and humans were bustling with activity, and Apollo's minions were quietly busy. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. It took a whole day to set off from Eulalia to the location of the wargame. The guild used 3 days to prepare the site. One day was used to prepare for Apollo's spawn, who were the defenders of the city. Therefore, 2 days after the end of the gods' assembly, Apollo's spawn set off. As for the attackers, Hestia's spawn could only set off after 3 days. Plus the 1 day it took to move, the real war game actually took 4 days to start. On this day, Noah left Eulalia early in the morning and went outside. Here, a carriage had been prepared for a long time. Noah didn't even bring any luggage with him. He wore casual clothes and went to the city gate built on the city wall. He stopped in front of the carriage that was responsible for taking him to the wargame stage. Hestia and Bear were also here. Seeing Noah stop in front of the carriage, Hestia looked up and looked at Noah. There was no worry in her eyes, only trust. "I'll wait for you here." "Okay." Noah nodded and looked at Bear with a smile. "I'll leave Hestia to you." "Yes," Bear replied loudly. "Good luck, leader." Noah smiled and waved at Hestia and Bear in a carefree manner. Then he got into the carriage. Through the window of the carriage, Noah looked at Bel and Hestia, who were staring at him from the outside, and said calmly, "Don't worry about it. Let's go back. It won't take long." Hestia and Bel seemed to be influenced by Noah's confident words. Their expressions softened a lot. After nodding heavily, they turned around and returned to Eulalia without hesitation. Soon the wheels of the carriage started to turn slowly. Accompanied by the neighing of the horses, the carriage gradually sped up, gradually moving towards its destination. Looking at the scenery outside the window that was gradually moving backward, Noah let go of the curtains and leaned against the carriage, holding a piece of paper in his hand. On this piece of paper was the information recorded. Noah Dole LV. 2 Strength, SSS, 1307, Durability, SSS, 1310 Dexterity, SSS, 1308, Agility, SSS, 1318, Magic, SSS, 1300, Mystery, iMagic, Skill Frowny Face Protection from the World Permanent Skill. It was equivalent to luck. Events that were directly related to luck would eventually lead to the most favorable outcome. There were only 3 days. Within 3 days, Noah had once again upgraded all his ability points to the SSS level. If Ace and the others saw Noah's current ability points, they would be more than just surprised. Well, it's better than nothing. Noah opened the curtain and threw the paper out of the window, letting it fly with the wind. Looking at the flying recording paper and the scenery outside the window, Noah's lips curled into a cold arc. Chapter 898. The streets were bustling. Today, Eulalia was several times livelier than usual. As if a festival was about to be held, all the taverns in Eulalia opened early in the morning. On the sides of the streets, in every corner, vendors began to set up their stalls. On the road, pieces of parchment used for propaganda were almost all over the walls of the buildings. They were used to promote the war game between Hestia's family and Apollo's family. It was precisely because of this exaggerated propaganda that Eulalia became as lively as a festival, turning a war game into an entertainment program for the citizens of Eulalia. Needless to say, there was no one else who would do such a thing, except for those gods who thought it was not lively enough. Thus, it was as if a grand football match was about to begin. After 3 to 4 days of publicity, almost all the adventurers chose to rest today. Some even opened gambling houses to display the purpose of entertainment incisively and vividly. Not only that, a stage was set up in front of the headquarters of the guild. A guild staff held a magic stone product that could be used as a microphone, and made a loud and clear voice in the crowd below the stage. "Hello everyone. I am the broadcaster responsible for the live broadcast of this war game. Please take care of me." Although the guild forbade direct conflicts between family members, for a war game like this, the guild would generally work with merchants to promote it. By doing so, it could liven up the atmosphere of the city and turn the war game into a kind of entertainment performance, instead of giving people a feeling of indulgence in the private fights between the family clans, and bringing the ordinary citizens an uneasy feeling of underground fists. Another purpose was to be able to make a fortune like this, just like holding a festival. The propaganda of the gods played an obvious role, and the secret operation of the guild definitely helped a lot. In addition, such activities were used to show the strength of Eulalia to the world, like a demonstration, and attract talented and promising adventurers to this city. Most importantly, War games were also an extreme form of entertainment that the gods pursued. When the people in Eulalia were lively, the gods began to gather in the Tower of Babel. On the 30th floor of the Tower of Babel, most of the gods who looked forward to war games more than anyone else came here. Hestia and Apollo were among them. "How is it?" Apollo said to Hestia with his usual dazzling smile. "That child should be ready to come to me, right?" "Of course I'm ready," Hestia said as she glanced at Apollo. "Get ready to defeat all of your children." "Well, this is the only time you can force yourself." Apollo shrugged lightly. He didn't take it seriously at all. He just looked at the sky outside the window and said this. "It should be about time, right? The war games will begin at noon." And now it was almost noon. Loki, who was sitting at the head of the table, glanced at all the gods around him and said loudly, "Since it's almost time, let's begin." "All right." All the gods in Eulalia responded in unison. Then they reached out their hands and snapped their fingers. But at this very moment, Wang! In Eulalia's world, whether it was the tavern, the street corner, or the front of the guild headquarters, many projection-like screens suddenly appeared in the air. On the screen, a city was reflected on it. That was the city that Apollo's minions were guarding. Wow! The countless round screens that appeared in every corner of the city caused a commotion in the sky above the city. Such an incredible thing could only be done by a god. In the lower realm, the gods had set a rule that they could never use the power of a god. If a god was found to be using the power of a god in the lower realm, that god would be sent back to the heavens. However, there were exceptions to everything. In the lower realm, the only power of a god that was allowed to be used was the ability called God's Mirror, which was similar to clairvoyance. This ability could broadcast everything that happened in a place that the gods wanted to see, no matter how far away it was. In order to allow the gods to enjoy the activities planned in the lower realm, this was the only exception that was allowed to be used. Of course, it could only be used when entertainment and activities such as war games were taking place. Otherwise, if it was used in private without permission, it would be banned. With this ability, even if it was far away from the war game, the people in Eulalia could see the whole process. Therefore, when the citizens began to clamor, the broadcaster in front of the guild headquarters began to explain. This time, the war game will be carried out by Hestia's family and Apollo's family. It will be a siege battle. First, we can see that the members of Apollo's family are ready in the city. Next, although it's hard to believe, I have to tell you that Hestia's family is only going to send one member out. So, where is this Noah Doria who has been rumored to be a god during this period of time? The bell announcing the start of the war is about to ring. The broadcaster's tone was very excited, and it brought everyone's emotions to the peak. Until, at a certain moment, the sound of a huge bell suddenly rang out. Clang! Accompanied by such a loud bell, the live broadcaster announced loudly, "I announce, the war game belongs to Hestia's family and Apollo's family. It officially begins." Oh, cheers that resounded through the sky rushed into the sky. On the other side, in a city far away from the Great Wall, the handsome human young man, Yacentos, sat on a throne in the middle of the city. Through the window, he looked at the city that was filled with members of his guild. The war was in the form of a siege war. The war would last for 3 days. As long as Yacentos, the general, could survive these 3 days or make the only member of the enemy, Noah Doria, unable to fight, it would be the victory of Apollo's family. However, if Noah broke into the city and defeated Yacentos, the leader of Hestia's family, it would be the victory of Hestia's family. In this situation, Yacentos looked out of the window with a gloomy expression filled with hatred. It's obvious that that guy won't break into the city openly. He will definitely choose to sneak in, find me and kick me off the throne to win, right? Because of this reason, Yacentos gathered almost half of the members of his family tribe around him, and the rest were all patrolling the city. It could be said that the city was heavily guarded. This city was actually quite big. Originally, this was a fortress that was not enough to defend with 110 people. Therefore, Yacentos' arrangement reduced the number of soldiers in the city by half, and the number of soldiers in the city became even more insufficient. It doesn't matter. Anyway, that guy will definitely come here. Yacentos clenched his hand that was on the armrest of the throne, and his handsome face was twisted. When you come here, I will make you pay for the humiliation from a few days ago. Jacintos admired Apollo very much. From the beginning, Jacintos was full of jealousy and hatred toward Noah, who was favored by Apollo. This was the reason why Jacintos didn't hesitate to kill Abel as soon as he found an opportunity. Unfortunately, Jacintos's strength was only worth a kick from Noah. Recalling the embarrassment and humiliation that day, the hatred in Jacintos's heart began to boil. I won't let you go. I will never let you go, Noah Doria. At this moment, an instinctive sense of crisis suddenly appeared in Jacintos's mind, and his expression froze. Leader! A member of the group suddenly pointed outside and shouted with a face full of shock. There! Jacintos looked outside almost subconsciously. Then Jacintos saw it. The originally clear sky suddenly seemed to be boiling, and a layer of dark clouds suddenly rolled up, like a whirlpool madly rolling up. What happened? Chapter 899. Dang! When the bell that announced the start of the war game rang from an unknown direction and spread throughout the ancient ruins, unlike Eulalie, who was excited, the members of the Apollo family who were acting as soldiers in the city at the center of the battlefield felt their hearts skip a beat. This time the war game was in the form of a siege battle, and the battle time was set to be 3 days. Although there was only one opponent, and it was a bit of an exaggeration to say that he was alone, the opponent was able to fight head-on with the only LV7 in Eulalie for a period of time, and he was able to kick the strongest leader of Apollo's minions, Jacinthus, around like a ball. Therefore, even if they had an unparalleled advantage in terms of numbers and terrain, these people who belonged to Apollo's clan were all nervous when they thought about the strength of the enemy. So the atmosphere in the city was immediately heavy. However, compared to the heavy and tense atmosphere in the city, the atmosphere on the city wall was quite relaxed. After all, the opponent is only one person. No matter how strong he is, he can't directly attack the city from the front, right? A group of archers who were standing guard on the city wall focused most of their attention on the vast plain outside the city. While observing the movement on the plain, they were actually talking to each other. There was almost no cover on the plain in front of the city. As long as there was no problem with eyesight, it was basically impossible to miss the movement on the plain. In addition, no one thought that Noah would be stupid enough to come from the front and attack the city gate directly. Therefore, the people who were responsible for guarding the city wall were the least pressured. The opponent will definitely find a way to sneak into the city and directly attack the leader. That's right. Otherwise, do you really want to rely on one person to attack the city? Only a fool would do that. The members of Apollo's clan who were guarding the city wall believed so. Well, maybe the opponent will use magic on the first day to test the thickness of the city wall? If he can use magic to break the city wall, then he should choose to attack the city from the front, right? But unfortunately, we are archers. Yeah. Generally speaking, the power and range of the magic was proportional to the length of the spell that needed to be chanted. If it was the kind of magic that needed a very long chanting time, then the power of the magic would definitely be unimaginable. That level of magic was more than enough to burn down an entire forest. It was not impossible to use it to break through the city walls. However, the longer it took to cast a powerful spell, the greater the consumption of spiritual energy would be. When using magic, mental strength would gradually transform into mana, as the incantation was chanted. Naturally, the more concentration he consumed, the stronger the mana he converted into mana, and the easier it was for others to sense his mana fluctuations. Therefore, if it was an extremely long incantation that could break through the city walls, it would probably be discovered by the people on the city walls halfway through. At that time, as long as a rain of arrows rained down while chanting magic, the enemy who couldn't be distracted would instead become a real target. It was because of this that these archers were so relaxed. The enemy would definitely not attack head-on. Instead, they would try to sneak into the city and take down the general directly. That was what all the people guarding the city thought. Therefore, everything that happened next was simply a nightmare that would haunt those who believed so strongly in the spawn of Apollo for the rest of their lives. An archer who was chatting happily with his companion inadvertently caught a glimpse of the scenery in front of him. He was stunned for a moment before he cried out in surprise. "Look over there!" Amidst the exclamation of the archer, all the archers on the city walls were stunned. They turned their heads and looked at the front of the plain. Immediately, all the archers on the scene saw it. On the vast plain, right in front of the city, a figure slowly walked towards them while facing the strong wind. The hem of his knee-length coat fluttered in the wind, appearing very mysterious. Although there was still a distance between them, all the archers on the city walls could clearly see the appearance of the person. A human with black hair and black eyes. Apart from the only member of Hestia's clan who was the opponent of Apollo's clan in this war game, who else could it be? Naturally, it was Noah. In front of all the archers on the city walls, Noah walked alone while facing the wind. He didn't chant any magic incantations, nor did he conceal himself. He just walked silently. Looking up at the Apollo's spawn who were gaping at him from above, Noah smiled all of a sudden. That smile made the hearts of the archers of Apollo's minions tremble. Release! Release the arrows! On the city wall, an archer's hysterical yell resounded. Then, under the inexplicable fear, all the archers hysterically raised their longbows and aimed downwards. Whoosh 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 whoosh. After 2 or 3 seconds, an overwhelming rain of arrows immediately poured down from the city walls. They drew a perfect parabola in the air and shrouded Noah. Noah's field of vision was completely shrouded by the overwhelming rain of arrows. However, Noah's expression didn't change at all. Even the rhythm of his footsteps didn't change at all. He still slowly walked forward as if he intended to walk towards the overwhelming rain of arrows. Everyone who saw this scene exclaimed in surprise. Bang! Just as the overwhelming rain of arrows was about to envelop Noah's body, a storm-like mana wave surged from Noah's body, turning into a substantial shockwave with Noah as the center. The shockwave spread to the surroundings with Noah as the center. Boom! Accompanied by the shockwave of magic wave, the rain of arrows that shrouded the city seemed to have hit an invisible wall and scattered without any suspense. What? The archers on the city walls were all stunned. Noah's footsteps didn't stop from beginning to end. He walked forward at a leisurely pace as if he was taking a stroll. The next moment, a voice that seemed to come from the horizon clearly reverberated over the entire battlefield. I, with a violent heart, tightly cover the sky. I declare, roll up a storm for me, rain for me, and never allow you to disobey my orders. That was a lie to provoke the gods in the sky. That was the spirit of words that made the gods, who were enemies, tremble. When the spirit of words that had stepped into the realm of gods and released the power to kill gods resounded over the entire battlefield, in Noah's heart, the outline of the stone plate that was connected with 10 patterns, and the pattern representing the storm lit up. Buzz! The whole sky trembled extremely abruptly, and then it suddenly turned dark. A thick layer of dark clouds appeared out of thin air, suddenly covering the whole sky, and like a lake that was stirred up, it madly rotated. After a while, a whirlpool-like layer of dark clouds was imprinted in everyone's eyes. At the same time, an extremely oppressive atmosphere pervaded the whole world. What's going on? Whether it was the gods and people in Eulalia or the adventurers in the city, they were all shocked by the sudden change in the sky. Therefore, no one noticed it at all. In front of the city, Noah's footsteps had already stopped. He raised one of his hands and waved it down heavily. Whoosh! A huge tornado suddenly appeared from the middle of the vortex in the dark clouds. It shot out like a huge drill that descended from the sky. It pushed against the trembling space and violently landed on the city amidst a wave of ear-piercing whistling sounds. Boom! An earth-shattering sound burst out, causing the minds of everyone who watched the huge tornado descending from the sky to go blank in an instant. Paji paji paji. The city that was hit by the huge tornado made a hair-raising cracking sound. It was actually uprooted, and under the ravaging of the tornado, it was twisted into a pile of fragments. Chapter 900. What? What is that? Far away in Eulalia, in the Tower of Babel, a group of gods from the heaven looked at the apocalyptic scene in the divine mirror, and they all fell into an indescribable shock. On the projection-like screen, the magnificent city was being ravaged by a huge tornado that fell from the sky. The city walls were directly destroyed. The buildings were shattered into pieces one by one. Terrifying sand and dust rose from the ground. The world was pitch black. In the city, everything was twisted into pieces of rubble by the huge tornado. The rubble was swept into the tornado and blown into the sky. The gods could even see the adventurers belonging to Apollo's clan tumbling like rags in the huge tornado. It was as if they were thrown into a huge washing machine, constantly churning and making shrill screams. If such a scene couldn't be called terrifying, then what could be considered terrifying? Of course, for these gods, a tornado was nothing. However, from the tornado, every god present felt a sense of destruction, causing the hearts of these transcendental existences to tremble. Yes, tremble. Gods tremble. As a result, the entire Tower of Babel began to be filled with a deathly stillness. Compared to the gods who were all shocked on the spot, Apollo was completely stunned as he watched the members of his clan being engulfed by the huge tornado. Hasti, who was sitting in the corner, also opened her eyes wide. She stared blankly at the apocalyptic scene in the divine mirror. For a moment, she didn't know how to react. Hestia knew that Noah was definitely not an ordinary human being. How could an ordinary human be able to perform miracles that had never been done by other humans before? Hestia, who had witnessed Noah's incredible feats with her own eyes, never doubted that Noah was mysterious. She also knew that Noah must be hiding some big secrets. But Hestia didn't expect that Noah's miraculous abilities were still beyond her imagination. What kind of person is that child? A god from an unknown place murmured this sentence, but it was also the deepest thought in the hearts of all the gods present. Only Freya stared at the divine mirror. Standing in front of the city that was gradually being uprooted by the huge tornado, Noah's robe was fluttering wildly in the wind, but he stood still like an indomitable hero. Now his body was trembling. At this time in Freya's eyes, the brilliance of Noah's soul, which was originally as hot and dazzling as the sun, instantly soared countless times. If that radiance appeared in the form of light, it would definitely be able to burn and blind the eyes of any god or human. Freya, who saw this scene with her eyes that could see through other people's souls, tried her best to suppress the impulse that surged from the depths of her body. Her cheeks were completely red, and her body became extremely hot. She felt like she was about to burn up. This unprecedented pleasure brought Freya extreme insanity. Ha ha, ha ha, ha 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 ha. Ignoring the astonishment of the gods around her, Freya laughed maniacally as if there was no one around her. She laughed maniacally like she would never do in the past. So beautiful. So beautiful. It's too beautiful. In front of others, Freya had always been very careful about her image as a goddess of beauty. However, the brilliance of Noah's soul was so dazzling that Freya couldn't care less. She hugged her body tightly and laughed enchantingly and crazily. From this, one could see how much Noah had stimulated Freya. That little guy actually stimulated that love-struck fool to this extent? Loki stared at Noah's figure. His eyes, which had always been narrowed, opened slightly, revealing a pair of eyes full of wisdom. The corners of his mouth slowly curved up. Interesting, it's really interesting. It's such a waste to let that little dwarf monopolize such a child. Freya. Hestia also noticed Freya's behavior. Her pretty face sank, but her eyes were full of determination. I won't let you touch Noah, never. It wasn't just the gods in the Tower of Babel. Even the residents in Orly, whether humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, or Amazons, were all shocked by the earth-shattering scene. However, these residents of the lower realm were not like the gods, who could feel the sense of destruction that the huge tornado carried that even the gods could not ignore. They only knew that Noah had launched a spell that could destroy the entire city in an instant. Oh! At that moment, the entire Orly was filled with earth-shattering cheers. Many people who were inextricably linked to Noah were also watching this scene. For example, Baal, who was so excited in the headquarters of Hestia's clan that he could not find his bearings. For example, in the headquarters of Sumo's clan, there was a petite little human girl with a frightened face. For example, in Loki's clan, there was a group of first-level adventurers with dull faces. For example, there was a beautiful girl with waist-length blonde hair and bright eyes, who was wearing a bracelet on her wrist and staring intently at Noah, who was standing in front of the huge tornado like an indomitable hero. Whoosh! The huge tornado was still raging on the ground, setting off an amazing gust of wind that swept in all directions. Standing in front of the huge tornado and staring at the disaster caused by his storm incarnation, Noah's pair of dark and deep eyes flashed slightly, and then he cancelled the use of authority. The huge tornado that was raging wildly suddenly stopped. Boom! Without any warning, the huge tornado suddenly burst open, turning into layers of wind and waves, shaking the surroundings and gradually dissipating. Immediately, the debris, rubble, and wreckage of the city swept up by the huge tornado fell from midair, like a collapsed mountain of rocks, crashing to the ground with a loud bang. Boom! In the situation where even the ground trembled slightly, a large number of debris, rubble, and wreckage fell in front of Noah, causing a heavy bang and smoke to fill the sky. It didn't take long for the world to return to calm from the state of destruction just now, as if nothing had happened. However, the sturdy city had been completely reduced to ruins. This told everyone that everything was real. In the ruins of the dilapidated city, the members of Apollo's clan were either buried under the rubble or lying on pieces of broken building wreckage. All of them were motionless. Although they looked like they were dying, in fact, these people didn't suffer much damage at all, they just fainted. After all, the tornado just now was mainly used by Noah to destroy the city. The power had been deliberately suppressed by Noah to the point where it wouldn't kill people. Looking at the huge ruins, Noah curled his lips, lifted his feet, and walked purposefully in one direction of the ruins. After crossing the piles of rubble, pieces of debris, and wreckage of buildings, Noah came in front of a person lying on the ground and looked at him condescendingly. "How do you feel, Captain Jacintos?" It was none other than Jacintos. Under Noah's purposeful control, the rest of the people didn't die, they just fainted. Only Jacintos still maintained a certain degree of consciousness. Jacintos, who was lying on the ground, raised his head with difficulty and looked at Noah, who was looking at him condescendingly. He looked around at his companions who had fallen in the ruins, and his body began to tremble. "You! How dare you!" Like an injured beast, Jacintos roared at Noah with his eyes wide open. "I want you to die." With a roar, Jacintos' body suddenly shot out, and he viciously pulled out the wavy long sword, which directly tore the air apart, and attacked Noah with a sharp sound. Chapter 901. Hiya! In the roar that was no different from the roar of a wild beast, Jacintos, who was holding the wavy sword, madly dashed toward Noah with bloodshot eyes. At this moment, Jacintos, whose rationality had completely collapsed, only had hatred for Noah left in his heart. As a result, Jacintos, who had fallen into madness, suddenly forgot about it. Not long ago, when he faced Noah alone, what happened to the leader of the Apollo clan, who only had LV3? A cold light flashed in Noah's eyes as he looked at Jacintos, who was charging at him. Noah had always hated mindless massacres. Therefore, Noah purposely suppressed the power of the storm for the ordinary members of Apollo's minions, who were once forced to join Apollo's minions by various underhanded means. He only allowed the storm to destroy the city, and did not cause much damage to the members of Apollo's minions. But Jacintos was different. From the very beginning, this person harbored strong enmity, malice, and even killing intent towards Noah. Therefore, Noah didn't let Jacintos die under the power of the storm incarnation. Firstly, it was not good to kill him in front of so many people. Secondly, he planned to defeat him with his own hands. He had completely and utterly defeated this true enemy. Thus, facing the violently chopping wave sword, Noah only took a step forward, his body strangely tilting to one side. Swish! In the next moment, the sharp long sword that was suffused with a cold light brought along a sharp wind as it brushed past Noah's chest and landed in the air. Die! Jacintos roared crazily, and his eyes turned red. His hand moved, and the wavy longsword slashed out horizontally like an arc light. Looking at the sudden change in Jacintos' attack, the corner of Noah's mouth curled up, and he sneered. He suddenly clenched his fist and punched out, heavily colliding with Jacintos' wavy longsword. Of course, Noah wasn't stupid enough to use his body to block a sharp weapon. Even if Noah had the durability ability that was far beyond the ordinary LV2, even if he used the enhanced magic, there was no way to make his body hard enough to not be injured. Therefore, Noah's punch accurately landed on the side of Jacintos' wavy sword, which was the flat surface of the sword. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of metal colliding, a huge force suddenly burst out from the wavy longsword and shook the hand of Jacintos, who was holding the sword. Bang! A low muffled sound sounded, but Noah's body didn't move, while Jacintos' feet touched the ground, and he violently retreated more than 10 meters away. Seeing the fight between Noah and Jacintos and how Noah easily pushed Jacintos back, the gods and people far away in Eulalia all cheered out loud. Now, no one doubted Noah's victory. No. No. In the Tower of Babel, Apollo's hypocritical face finally disappeared completely. What was left was only a pale face, and he was still shouting at the god's mirror. Jacintos! You can't lose. You can't lose. Seeing how Apollo looked as if he was holding on to his last straw, the gods around him looked at him with pity and sympathy. So didn't I say it? Loki curled his lips. So shallow. On the other side, Jacintos hadn't recovered from the shock yet. He felt that his arm that was holding the weapon was numb, and he let out a muffled groan. In front of Jacintos, Noah just looked up with a calm face and slowly raised one of his hands. A golden ripple suddenly fluctuated from the back of Jacintos without any warning. Inside, a luxurious knight's sword suddenly appeared. The movement from behind made Jacintos's pupils shrink, and he quickly moved to the side. However, just as Jacintos was about to retreat, the luxurious knight's sword shot out from the golden ripple like a bullet. It was mixed with a sharp force, and it mercilessly shot toward Jacintos's back. Knowing that he couldn't dodge the knight's sword anymore, Jacintos turned around and swung his sword at the knight's sword behind him, ignoring the pain in his body that was caused by the sudden movement of his sword. Clank! The sound of steel colliding with steel was heard. Crack! Almost at the same time, the sound of the wavy sword in Jacintos's hand cracking echoed. Bang! Jacintos's wavy sword, which could only be regarded as a level 3 weapon, was directly shattered into pieces by the noble phantasm that only existed in myths and legends. Immediately afterward, a chain suddenly shot out from the golden ripples that hadn't disappeared yet. Like a whip, it viciously lashed at Jacintos. Dong! With a muffled sound, the chain that turned into a whip hit Jacintos's chest heavily. Poochie! The huge impact from his chest made Jacintos spit out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew backward like an arrow that was released from a bow. In the end, he crashed into a broken wall heavily. The sharp pain hit Jacintos's head, and his vision began to blur as his body fell down. Just as Jacintos's body was about to fall down, a hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Jacintos's neck, hanging him up. Jui! The feeling of suffocation replaced the sharp pain, and Jacintos reflexively grabbed the hand that was grabbing his neck and began to struggle in pain. In the end, Jacintos only saw a pair of dark and deep eyes that were filled with coldness. Since you want to take someone else's life, you should be prepared to be killed by someone else at any time. A voice drifted into Jacintos's ears. In order not to bring trouble to Hestia, I'll leave your life with her for now. In a few days I'll go and get it myself. Together with your most disgusting master god. After that, Jacintos's consciousness began to fade away and completely disappeared. Oh. In the divine mirror, Noah threw Jacintos's head down on the ground like a rag, and then turned around and left as if he had done something insignificant. The residents in Eulalia's divine mirror cheered loudly. Dang! The bell that announced the outcome of the battle echoed throughout the city. The battle is over. On the stage of the headquarters of the guild, the broadcaster leaned forward and shouted at the magic stone product in his hand with a red face. The winner is Hestia's family. The announcement of the victory made the residents cheer and the gods in the Tower of Babel laugh with satisfaction. As far as entertainment was concerned, the shock brought by Noah was sufficient entertainment. The gods were satisfied. Only Apollo retreated with a pale face. However, at this time, Hestia suddenly stood up from her seat at the round table and looked at Apollo with the most beautiful smile. That smile made Apollo's heart tremble. I remember that I haven't asked for the victory of the war game, right? Hestia's smile became more and more beautiful as she faced Apollo, who wanted to take her favorite child by force. Have you made up your mind? Apollo finally realized what kind of person he had offended. His face turned pale as he cried out in alarm. Wait. Who will wait for a pervert like you? I've tolerated you for a long time. Hestia shouted angrily. Apollo, I order you with the right of the winner of the war game. I'll confiscate all your property. Disband your clan tribe. I'll banish you forever. You're not allowed to step into Eulalia for the rest of your life. Facing Hestia's merciless order, Apollo screamed miserably. However, Apollo didn't realize that the real punishment hadn't come yet. Chapter 902. In the end, the war game ended with the victory of Hestia's clan, who only sent one person to participate in the battle and defeated the entire clan of Apollo. This war game would undoubtedly become a topic that would be repeatedly mentioned by all the residents of Eulalie in the future. After all, no one could forget that Noah used a tornado to defeat the entire city, and he also defeated the clan of Apollo and played with the level 3 Jacinthus in the palm of his hand. In addition, the previous gods deliberately promoted the fact that Noah could compete with the only level 7 in Eulalie. It was believed that from now on, the whole world would remember the name Noah Doria. No one would doubt it. This person would become a legend. Many people began to look forward to seeing with their own eyes the person who could summon such a devastating tornado with a wave of her hand in Eulalia. On the other hand, as the loser, Apollo's family clan began to obey Hestia's request and disbanded immediately. Those who had received Apollo's favor would all be liberated by Apollo, and they would no longer belong to him. After being liberated by Apollo, the favor of these former members of the clan of Apollo would not disappear. Even if Apollo was really dead, those favor would not disappear. Hestia also said that the favor of the gods was at best an accelerant used to draw out the possibility of the people in the lower realm. In such a case, the possibility of the people in the lower realm that had been drawn out naturally would not disappear. However, without the main god, the ability value could no longer be updated, and the favor from the gods would also lose its vitality, so the possibility of being drawn out would be in a frozen state. There was no way to enhance the ability of the people who received the favor. Including basic ability, development ability, magic, skills, and so on, all would be sealed. Of course, it was only because of the loss of the main god that the effect could not continue to be maintained, but the possibility of being drawn out did not disappear. When these people rejoined the clan and received the blood of the main god of other clan, the sacred text engraved on the back of these people would once again exert its effect without any decrease. Therefore, some of these former members of Apollo's clan began to explore their future path, some accepted the recruitment of other clans, and some were unable to recover from the setback. Everyone had their own path of development. Naturally, a small number of people who were really fascinated by Apollo would continue to follow Apollo and leave Eulalie. For example, Jacinthus. This person would definitely leave with Apollo. As for all the property left by the clan of Apollo, it all belonged to the clan of Hestia. In the dark night at the city gate of Eulalie, a group of people came out of the city sparsely. Looking around at the few members who were following him, Apollo recalled the glory days of the past. His face was filled with bitterness. Those adorable children that I finally managed to get my hands on have all left me? This was the result of forcefully seizing and using all kinds of pestering and underhanded methods to pursue the person one liked. As a result, except for the people led by Jacinthus, more than 80% of the clan of Apollo did not choose to follow Apollo, and they left this god who was extremely dirty in all aspects without hesitation. Apollo, are we just going to let it go like this? Jacinthus' face was full of unwillingness. It's all because of that Noah dole that we have fallen to this state. Apollo, that man is not worthy of so much love from you. Like Jacinthus, the rest of the people who followed Apollo more or less showed some unwillingness and hatred. It can't be helped, Jacinthus. That child is too outstanding, too dazzling. Even Goddess Freya and Goddess Loki are trying to get that child. How can I, Apollo, not be captivated by him? Apollo sighed with some sadness, but in the next second, he showed a somewhat ugly smile. However, since I can't get that child, then let me leave some gifts for him. Hearing this, Jacinthus' eyes lit up, and the unwillingness and hatred on his face eased a little. Although he was obsessed with Apollo because of this, no one knew Apollo better than Jacinthus. With the vile divinity of Apollo, who did not hesitate to use any underhanded means to force the person he fancied into his arms, now that he had finally stumbled in front of a person, how could there not be some trouble left behind? Even if I can't get that child, I have to leave a deep impression on that child. Apollo's dazzling smile as usual bloomed in the dark night. Whether it's love or hate, as long as I can make that child remember me, I have to try, right? As soon as this sentence fell from Apollo's mouth, a cold voice sounded and drilled into the ears of everyone present. I think, let me leave an unforgettable impression on you. When that cold voice sounded and drilled into the ears of the remaining members of Apollo's family led by Apollo, everyone present was shocked. and they suddenly raised their heads and looked forward. They saw that under the dark moonlight, a figure appeared on a tree without them noticing. Leaning against the trunk, he looked down at the group of people led by Apollo with a faint smile on his face that made everyone feel a slight chill in their hearts. "It's you," Apollo said in shock. "It's you." Eurysanthus was slightly stunned at first, but then his face sank, and hatred appeared in his eyes. "Noah Dole." Hearing this name, the group of people who planned to follow Apollo reacted, and like Eurysanthus, they looked at Noah with hatred and malice in their eyes. Noah, who was leaning against the trunk, clearly saw the hatred and malice in the eyes of those people, and his voice was full of indifference. "It seems that the guys here are not innocent. Even if you kill them, it should be fine, right?" "Kill them?" Apollo was stunned on the spot. "Kill them?" Those who followed Apollo didn't realize anything from Noah's words at all, and they all looked at each other. "Kill them?" Only Eurysanthus recalled the words he heard before he was defeated by Noah during the war game, and a sense of crisis surged all over his body, causing him to yell out loud, "Quick! Kill him! He's here to kill us!" However, this sentence instead became the talisman that hastened the death of everyone present. Although the remaining members of Apollo's family didn't understand what was going on, when they heard Eurysanthus' order, the hatred and malice in their eyes finally exploded. The hatred and malice in these people's hearts had already reached the limit of the culprit, who forced them into this situation. It was to the point that these people had forgotten. This person in front of them was not someone they could deal with. Hiya! Therefore, without any hesitation, except for Eurysanthus who was protecting Apollo, the rest of the people raised their sharp weapons and charged toward Noah while roaring. However, at the same time, beside Noah who was leaning against the tree with his arms crossed, golden ripples suddenly flashed in the air like water waves, and weapons popped out one after another. Luxurious weapons such as sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and other weapons shot out from the golden ripples like arrows leaving their bowstrings. Carrying streams of light composed of golden particles, they shot out like deadly beams of light, piercing through the space and enveloping the charging people. Poochie! 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 There was no surprise at all. Along with the sound of bodies being pierced through, the remaining members of Apollo's family who were not even at LV3, and some of them were only at LV1, had their bodies pierced through by the treasures one by one, bringing out bursts of crimson blood. They didn't even have time to scream. These people all fell to the ground. Chapter 903. Pung. Pung pung pung. Along with a series of dull thuds, the remaining members of Apollo's clan fell to the ground one by one with bright red blood stains, and the life force on their bodies began to disappear gradually. After these people fell to the ground, the noble phantoms that pierced through their bodies also turned into light particles and returned to Noah's treasure vault. What? Apollo's eyes widened as he looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Of course, Apollo's disbelief was not because he doubted that Noah had the ability to kill those people in an instant, but because he couldn't believe that Noah actually killed them. "You!" Eurysanthus also shouted out in shock. "You actually killed them?" Hearing this, Noah smirked and looked at Eurysanthus with sarcasm. "Since you want to kill others, then you should be prepared that your life will be taken away by others at any time. Since you want to kill me, do you think that I will show you mercy?" From the beginning, Noah and Hestia didn't provoke anyone, but for no reason, Apollo made things difficult for them. In order to obtain Noah, Apollo did not hesitate to let the people of the Spawn tribe find fault with Noah for no reason and kidnap Baal. His methods could not be described as not despicable. As for Eurysanthus, he had even tried to kill Noah many times. Just because of a brainless jealousy, Noah had become a thorn in the other party's side. Noah was the kind of person who would treat others better if they treated him well, and treat others worse if they treated him badly. Apollo and Eurysanthus made things difficult for him one after another, and this made Noah remember this in his heart. However, because the guild had clearly stated that direct conflicts between clan members were prohibited, Noah didn't blatantly report what these people did. After all, even if Noah didn't care about the guild's rules, his clan would still be banned by the guild. In that case, Hestia and Baal would definitely be implicated. In order to not let Hestia and Baal be implicated, Noah deliberately took a big detour and waited until today. Now, the entire clan of Apollo had been disbanded, and the innocent people who were forced by Apollo had all left Apollo's side. Only these people who were on Apollo's side were left. In addition, Apollo had been exiled from Eulalia forever, so even if Noah killed these people here, it wouldn't attract anyone's attention. I have tolerated you for a long time. Noah jumped down from the tree and landed steadily on the ground. There were golden ripples floating behind him like a shadow, and they moved with Noah's movement. Raising his head, Noah looked at Apollo and Zacynthus, whose expressions changed drastically. He no longer concealed the coldness in his eyes and released a shocking murderous intent. Today let me settle this score with you. Feeling the shocking murderous intent from Noah at this moment, not to mention Zacynthus, Apollo was the first one who couldn't take it. He took a step back and screamed with a pale face. Zacynthus! Hearing the screams of Apollo, although Zacynthus was also shocked by the shocking murderous intent, and his body was frozen on the spot, the fear in his heart aroused even more intense unwillingness and hatred towards Noah, making him scream hysterically. You, a lowly and weak adventurer from a clan, want to kill me? Dream on. Twice. From beginning to end, Zacynthus had been defeated by Noah twice without being able to fight back. Zacynthus knew that with his strength, there was no way he could win against this terrifying opponent in front of him. However, in the previous 2 battles with Noah, Zacynthus also had trump cards that he hadn't used yet. To be precise, it should be said that in the face of Noah's terrifying strength that was far above his own, Zacynthus didn't have time to use his trump card twice, and he was easily defeated by Noah. This time Zacynthus wouldn't overestimate himself and challenge Noah again. Facing the executioner who was releasing his murderous intent, Zacynthus, who knew that he couldn't challenge Noah at all, didn't hesitate to use his last trump card, which was also his last hope of surviving from Noah's attack. It was a trump card that could bring someone back to life magic. Zacynthus, who couldn't use his own strength to resist Noah, could only use the only trump card that could turn the situation around. Zacynthus immediately jumped back with all his strength. My name is Love, the darling of light, I offer myself to my son dash. My name is Sin, the envy of wind, I summon a gust of wind to be dash, cast wheel of fire. Come on, wind of the west. In this jump, under the threat of death, Zacynthus chanted his magic incantation at an unprecedented speed, and the huge amount of magic power transformed from his mind power surged back and forth around Zacynthus. Seeing this, Noah narrowed his eyes, but he didn't stop Zacynthus. He just stood there without moving. Seeing this, Zacynthus was happy and angry. He was happy that Noah didn't want to stop him from using magic. He was angry that Noah underestimated him. Under the control of his emotions, Zacynthus roared, twisted his upper body, lowered his center of gravity, and lowered his left arm while raising his right arm high. His posture was like a sports player throwing a discus. Wang! The magic power that surged around Zacynthus suddenly condensed on his right hand and turned into a bright, hot disk that looked like the outline of the sun. Zephylos dash. As Zacynthus roared the name of the magic spell, he swung his arm and pushed his right hand hard, throwing out the big disk that looked like a real discus. Wang! The bright and dazzling sun suddenly rotated at a high speed, emitting a trembling sound that caused the space to tremble. It cut through the space like a ferocious cutting machine, bringing along a stream of light as it shot directly in Noah's direction. Whoosh! However, at the same time, a luxurious spear suddenly bounced up from a golden ripple behind Noah and shot out like a meteor. With a sharp piercing sound, it collided with the dazzling sun that was coming at him. Dong! A muffled sound that shook the air suddenly sounded. A burst of extreme shockwaves exploded. The bright, dazzling sun only froze for a moment. Then it was pushed back by the spear that collided with it. Bang dash! Therefore, the bright, dazzling sun directly exploded under the unparalleled impact, scattering into sparks all over the sky. Zacynthus didn't even have time to react before the luxurious spear shot out from the sparks all over the sky. Under Zacynthus' horrified expression, the spear resisted the fierce wind and landed on Zacynthus' chest. Puck dash! The sharp spear pierced through Zacynthus' chest, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Then the spear that pierced through Zacynthus' chest continued to fly forward without slowing down. It carried Zacynthus' body and landed on Eulalia's city wall like a bullet. Clang dash! With a sound of metal colliding, The spear was nailed to the city wall. Naturally, Jacintos, who was pierced through the chest by the spear, was also nailed to the city wall. His eyes were wide open and blood was flowing out of his mouth and chest, but he couldn't move anymore. Jacintos was dead. Jacintos! Apollo let out a miserable cry. However, at this moment, golden ripples began to reverberate around Apollo, surrounding him within. In the next second, silver chains with wedges of different shapes burst out from the golden ripples. They wrapped around Apollo's body and wrapped around him. Pa! As the chains were pulled, Apollo screamed in pain as he was lifted into the air. Chapter 904. From the moment Jacinthus decided to use magic to gamble everything, to the moment Noah used his noble phantasm to defeat Jacinthus' last resort. Noah killed Jacinthus and hung Apollo up with Enkidu. The whole process didn't even take 20 seconds. In 20 seconds, Jacinthus, who was a LV3 adventurer, was killed, and Apollo, who was the main god of Apollo's family, was also bound. Such a rapid development made Apollo's mind a little blank. He was stunned and couldn't move. At this time in Apollo's heart, there was finally a feeling called regret. For Apollo, he just wanted to get what he wanted, and he didn't consider the feelings of those who were harassed by him. Therefore, Apollo never felt that what he did was wrong, and he never felt that there was anything wrong with it. Therefore, even if he was defeated in the war game, even if Hestia announced the disbandment of Apollo's family as the winner, Apollo didn't feel any regret. After all, for these gods, the joy, anger, sorrow, and other things that could lead to these feelings were just a kind of enjoyment. The regret in Apollo's heart was also a kind of enjoyment that belonged to the gods. In the hearts of the gods, this lower realm was actually a game to experience life. Therefore, Apollo didn't realize. Tonight, the person who appeared here to completely solve the remaining problems of Apollo's family was not going to end the game called life, but the life of a god. Looking at Apollo's face full of regret, Noah's eyes flashed, and he reached out his hand to a golden ripple on the side. Wong! In the tremor of the golden ripple that seemed to be imprinted in space, a long spear like floating from the water bounced out of the golden ripple, and it just happened to fall into Noah's outstretched hand, and it was pulled out by Noah from the golden ripple. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a long spear that was dark red in color. However, there wasn't only one spearhead of the long spear. Instead, it was like a fork, like a parallel line. It was divided into two, and stretched out in a forked shape. Holding the two-pronged dark red spear, Noah lifted his foot and slowly walked towards Apollo. Only then did Apollo realize that Noah was walking towards him with a dark red forked spear in his hand. Apollo's eyes widened and his lips began to tremble. Wait, what do you want? Noah didn't even bother to pay attention to Apollo. His face was still cold as he resolutely walked towards Apollo. Are you going to attack me? Apollo shouted in shock. Are you crazy? It was no wonder that Apollo was so shocked. This was because to the people of this world, the act of killing a god was an absolute taboo. Only a god could attack a god. Once a god was fatally injured, the divine power sealed within his body would automatically activate to maintain his body's life. Therefore, even if a god was killed in the mortal realm, he wouldn't die. However, if a god was injured and needed to activate his divine power to restore his identity and power, then according to the rules set by the gods, even if he didn't use it voluntarily, he would be regarded as using divine power and would be forcibly sent back to heaven. Under such circumstances, Apollo's heart was filled with two other emotions that were on par with regret. First, he was shocked. He was shocked that Noah dared to attack a god despite the absolute taboo. Second, he was anxious. Anxiously, if Noah really did not hesitate to commit a great taboo to kill him, Apollo, whose divine power had been triggered, could only be sent back to the heaven realm. This was something Apollo absolutely didn't want to accept. Wait, child. Calm down. At that moment, Apollo's voice became like a scream. I admit that I was possessed this time. I shouldn't have attacked you. But that's also because you're too outstanding and too cute. For Hestia's sake, please let me go this time, okay? Hearing Apollo's pitiful pleading, Noah finally arrived in front of Apollo. Looking at Apollo's deathly pale face, he sneered. Whoosh! Without any warning, Noah spun the dark red spear in his hand and performed a beautiful spear dance. As Apollo's expression changed, The relic in his hand turned into a red lightning bolt and pierced towards Apollo with a sharp wind. Slash! The familiar sound of a body being pierced echoed in the air. The dark red spear pierced through Apollo's chest and crushed his heart. Apollo opened his mouth and let out a silent scream. He stared at Noah with his eyes wide open, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. "Let you go this time?" Noah, who was holding the dark red spear, laughed sarcastically. "Then, have you ever thought of letting go of those innocent people whose lives were almost ruined by you? Who were taken by force just this once?" Apollo's eyes widened, and finally, the light in his eyes began to fade. Clang! At that moment, a strong light that was stronger than any light in the world burst out from Apollo's body and illuminated the darkness. Undoubtedly, the divine power in Apollo's body, which was fatally injured, was triggered automatically to save Apollo's life. The dazzling light kept flowing around Apollo's body and restored the light in his eyes that was about to fade away. Buzz! However, at that moment, the dark red spear that pierced through Apollo's heart suddenly trembled and released a red light that was even brighter than the light that burst out from Apollo's body. Under this dazzling red light, the light flowing around Apollo's body trembled violently and was actually dispelled. The red light that blossomed from the dark red spear also poured into Apollo's body and attacked Apollo's body that had recovered the identity of a god, and even the life in this body. Ah! Apollo finally let out an uncontrollable scream. "Do you think that I'm just going to send you back to heaven?" Noah was indifferent and even smiled indifferently. "Unfortunately, you're wrong. I want you to completely disappear from any corner of this world." After saying that, Noah poured the magic in his body into the dark red spear in his hand like a flood. This spear had a name that was impossible for anyone not to know. Longinus spear. It was a spear that was clearly recorded in the Bible that pierced through the Son of God named Jesus. Because of this incident recorded in the Bible, this spear had the power to cause harm to God. Therefore, it was also known as the Spear of God. Through the hands of Gaia and Aleia, this spear fell into Noah's hands. The ability of this gun was similar to that of the Enkidu, which was also an armament used against the gods. The Heavens Lock's ability was that the higher the target's divinity, the stronger it would become. The Longinus spear's ability was that the higher the target's divinity, the more damage it would cause. With Apollo's rank as a god, his divinity was high enough to instantly kill him. Thus, in the midst of Apollo's mournful screams, he who was tightly bound by the silver chains was suddenly swallowed by the red light and turned into a burst of light particles, gradually disappearing. Apollo dead. Perhaps until the end Apollo would never believe that in this game called the Lower Realm, he would actually lose his life. However, this world doesn't have Pandora's great curse, so it's impossible for the person who killed God to obtain God's authority. Leaving this sentence, Noah was just about to turn around and leave when a burst of brilliant white light suddenly appeared in front of his eyes from where Apollo turned into light particles and disappeared. Seeing this, Noah's footsteps stopped as he was stunned. It can't be? Chapter 905. Clang! In the space where the existence called God was annihilated in the long river of history, and turned into a burst of light particles and dissipated, an incomplete feather that was flowing with extremely pure white light slowly floated down and suspended in the space in front of Noah. Looking at the incomplete holy feather, Noah was completely stunned. He even stretched out his hand towards the incomplete feather with some uncertainty. The next moment, the incomplete feather that only Noah could see was like a bird returning to its nest. With a tremor, it floated without hesitation towards Noah's outstretched hand and gently fell into Noah's palm. Feeling the weightless but extremely familiar touch, Noah's somewhat disbelieving expression gradually turned into a wry smile, and finally, it turned into a dumbfounded expression. So that's how it is. This kind of thing can also happen. Noah really didn't expect that he would actually find the lost world fragment in this world under such circumstances. Originally, Noah planned to temporarily train the ability value he got from Hestia, and after confirming how much help the world fragment brought to him, he would think of a way to find the world fragment. Who would have thought that, in order to get rid of a perverted god who was obviously a male but had designs on her, she had accidentally caused the world fragment to appear. As mentioned before, the world fragment existed in various forms. Sometimes it was lodging in an object. Sometimes it was lost in a certain corner. Sometimes it was a substantial existence that was picked up by someone. Sometimes it needed to meet a certain condition to appear. In the world of the dark bullet, Noah saw the world fragment, because he saw hope and miracle in that world that was facing despair. This time it was just the same thing happening once again. The difference was that this time the condition for the world fragment to appear was not to see hope in despair, but to destroy the god who was enjoying the world as a game. If Apollo didn't find Noah and used all kinds of despicable means to challenge Noah's bottom line and arouse Noah's killing intent, then perhaps Noah would never be able to find the world fragment in this world. After all, Noah wouldn't suddenly kill a god for no reason, right? Should I say that fate is playing tricks on me? Or is it fate playing tricks on me? After retrieving the world fragment that he accidentally found, Noah looked at the gradually disappearing light particles and smiled slightly. You should feel proud. In the end, your meaningless life made a world be reborn. After saying that, Noah looked around, looking at the remaining scourges of Apollo's family, on the ground and Jacinto's who was nailed to the city wall by a spear. He waved his hand, and golden ripples appeared on the corpses one by one. Immediately from each golden ripple, a bottle filled with an unknown liquid appeared and smashed on the corpses. Bang 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 bang. The bottles exploded one by one, and the liquid inside directly drenched the corpses. Bang! Then, a burst of scorching flame suddenly burned from the corpses and covered them all. In this way, including the god, the entire Apollo's family disappeared without a trace. Noah looked at the dark moonlight, turned around and walked into Orly's house. Cheers! In the base camp of Hestia's family, Noah, Hestia, and Baal were all holding a drink in their hands, and with a crisp ding sound, they clinked their drinks with each other. At this moment, on the table in front of the three of them, there were plates of hot dishes piled up, and some of them could only be stacked on top of each other. It was obvious that Noah, Hestia, and Baal were holding a small celebration party. It had been several days since the end of the war game. Because they had been busy receiving the property left behind by Apollo's family, Noah and the others hadn't been able to hold a celebration party. Today, when Hestia came back, she immediately said that the property of Apollo's family had been received, and even the base camp of Apollo's family had been sold for money, so they could hold a celebration party. Upon closer inspection, one could see that in the corner of the hall, there were sacks the size of sacks. Of course, those sacks weren't filled with rice but with golden coins. Those were all brought back by Hestia after she had converted the property of Apollo's family into money. Noah still remembered that Baal's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw those sacks filled with dazzling gold coins. It was really hilarious. But is this okay? Noah, who had finished his drink, looked at Hestia and asked. Forget about the other things, but the base camp of Apollo's family is said to be very grand. Why did you sell it? Don't you want to live in a grand house? It must be known that Apollo's family was the backbone of the forces in Orly. There were 110 combatants who participated in the war game alone. To let so many people live in a base camp, one could imagine the size of the base camp. Even if it couldn't be compared to the base camp of Loki's family, which could accommodate thousands of people, it definitely wouldn't be worse than this house that could only accommodate 3 people. Why didn't Hestia want to move there? There's no need for that now, Hestia said without hiding anything. Not only did you buy this house, Noah, but we've also lived here for less than 2 months. I feel a little reluctant to give it up so casually. Anyway, there are only 3 of us, so there's no need to live in such a big place. I'm very satisfied with this place. I also think this place is good. Baal nodded and said embarrassedly. I won't be used to living in a place that's too big. But I don't think it's good to sell the mansion so casually. Noah scratched his cheek and said. After the war game, after seeing my performance, there should be a lot of people who want to join our clan tribe. Well, although it sounds like I'm bragging a bit. You're not boastful, Noah, Hestia corrected him. Your performance in the war game was without a doubt the best. That's right. Baal nodded even more quickly as if he wanted to increase the credibility of his words. Captain, you were really amazing that day. You destroyed a city with a single spell. You defeated the entire Apollo's family single-handedly. I'm sure many people in Orly are starting to admire you, Captain. I'm embarrassed to be told that by my own people. Noah smiled embarrassedly and shrugged. If that's the case, many people will want to join our family. When that time comes, this small place won't be able to accommodate so many people, right? You're right. Hestia's expression became a little uncertain. It's just that I don't want to suddenly increase the number of members. You don't want to suddenly increase the number of members? Bale was stunned. You don't want to suddenly increase the number of members? Noah was also stunned. Why is that? Hearing this, Hestia couldn't help but recall what had happened when the war game announced the victory of Hestia's family. She had judged Apollo and waited until the gods began to leave the Tower of Babel. After Hestia judged Apollo, the gods who were gloating over Apollo's misfortune took the initiative to escort Apollo and witness him passing the property of Hestia's family to Hestia. Seeing Apollo being escorted away by the gods, Hestia was in a good mood and planned to follow them. Hestia. At this time a voice stopped her. Chapter 906. Hestia. The voice that called out to Hestia was an extremely seductive voice that could make one's body go numb, as if one's soul would be taken away. Hearing this voice, the smile on Hestia's face froze as her heart sunk. However, Hestia couldn't ignore the voice. She slowly turned around and looked at the source of the voice. A beautiful silver-haired goddess stood up from a seat at the large round table and came to Hestia with a gorgeous smile on her face. Seeing this smile, Hestia's heart sank even deeper. It was not a friendly smile at all. It was as if she was looking at a childhood friend who had taken away her favorite toy. It was a smile as if she had done something wrong. That child is really outstanding. Hestia naturally knew who Freya was referring to. Biting her lips, the petite goddess glared at Freya. So? What do you want? It's nothing. Freya smiled sweetly as if she was talking to herself. Originally, I wanted to observe the child for a while because he seems to be hiding a lot of secrets. Even I don't dare to say that I can win him over. Noah is not a toy. Hestia resolutely interrupted Freya's mutterings. Don't take him away as if he's an object. In terms of affection, Freya was almost no different from Apollo. In terms of cruelty, Freya was even more ruthless than Apollo. At least, after Apollo had won the girl's heart, he would treat her like a human. But Freya treated the person she liked like a collector's item. Anyone who was a goddess would know that Freya had a hobby of collecting children from the lower realm, especially those who had outstanding souls. Freya was like a drug addict who was chasing after drugs. Could only be described as crazy. In the past, before Freya descended to the lower realm, she had collected the souls of those who were called heroes by the people of the lower realm. She hid them in her palace more than once. After loving them for a while, she lost interest in them and kept them in her palace. She did not allow them to reincarnate. Those who had made great contributions to the people of the lower realm were given the cruelest ending. That was why Freya knew. If Noah fell into Freya's hands, he would not have a good ending. As if she had seen through Hestia's thoughts, Freya smiled. Her smile was quite creepy. I'm sorry, Hestia. This time you really misunderstood me. Misunderstood? Hestia raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? You think I'll treat that child as a collector's item, right? The smile on Freya's face became more and more creepy. In the end, it could even be described as crazy. But you're wrong, Hestia. You don't have the same eyes as me. You don't know what that child means to me. As she said this, Freya raised her head. It was as if she could see Noah's face from the ceiling. Her pretty face became infatuated with him. That child's brilliance is too dazzling. No matter who it is, whether it's in the past or in the future, I'm sure that no one can match that child's brilliance. No, it should be said that no one can match that child's brilliance. I'm infatuated with him. This kind of infatuation is not on the same level as the other children I used to treat. Freya's tone was full of extreme love. Think about it, Hestia. If you live in a desert and only get a drop of water every day, you cherish the water so much that you don't even want to drink it and can only store it away. But one day, a sea suddenly appears in front of you. That feeling is that you feel. Now that's how I feel. Freya met Hestia's gaze with a burning gaze. If the children I got before were only drops of water, then that child is a vast sea. And there can't be two oceans at the same time in the world. So that child, I must have him. Freya uttered those words with a determination that Hestia had never heard before. Today, I know that this child is actually hiding even more brilliance. He will definitely release even more brilliance in the future. His future is limitless, and so is his potential. Freya sucked a finger in her mouth and let out a charming laugh. Hestia, I won't give him to you because you can't see that child's brilliance at all. You'd better be mentally prepared. Freya, who was shocked by Freya's burning gaze and love that was even hotter than the sun, bit her lips harder and harder, but she still said this sentence with great determination. I won't give Noah to you. Absolutely not. Is that so? Freya smiled leisurely. In other words, you're going to play a war game with me? Freya's words made Hestia's heart tremble slightly. A war game? With only 2 members of a clan, she was going to challenge one of Eulalie's strongest clans? And it was a clan that not only had Eulalie's only LV7, but also had close to 10 level 1 adventurers? This was no longer something that could be described as madness and suicide. But Hestia still spoke her mind without hesitation. If you want, then I don't mind accepting. The unexpected answer made Freya raise an eyebrow and look at Hestia meaningfully. Is that child that important to you? Of course. Hestia looked straight at Freya. He's the only one who didn't mind when I was at my lowest. He's my most important family member. Family member. Freya's eyes widened slightly, and then she seemed to be amused. She bent down, put her mouth close to Hestia's ear, and whispered seductive words. No, Hestia, if that's all you have for that child, it's nothing compared to my love for him. If we compare our love for that child, I won't lose to you. Hestia did not move at all. She ignored Freya, who had put her mouth close to her ear and was very close to her. She continued to stare straight ahead as she spoke. How can a fickle god like you have so much love for Noah? Is that so? Freya's smile did not fade, and then she said something that shocked Hestia. Then let me tell you, if that child can hold me in his arms, then I won't be interested in any other man in my life, including the children I had before. This is my love for him. What? Hestia finally took a step back and looked at Freya in shock. You actually... Freya's affectionate nature could no longer be described by her personality, but by her own divinity and divinity. Ryder once said that her sister was destined to be violated, and there was no other way to preserve her purity other than death. She was like a goddess who was destined to have such a fate. Freya's affectionate nature had also risen to the level of fate. It was precisely because the gods had the same thing that they were eternally unchanging. But I'm willing to change for that child, Freya said with a smile without a trace of confusion. Now, do you understand the extent of my love for him? Hestia could not say a word. For now, I won't do anything to that child. Freya showed a charming smile. After all, you only need family. When your family grows to a certain extent, then I'll go find him. With these words, Freya turned around and left the scene with her melodious footsteps. Hestia looked at Freya's back as she gradually disappeared into the distance. She lowered her head, and her eyes were filled with uncertainty. Chapter 907. She couldn't help but bite her lip when she recalled what had happened back then. Noah and Baal exchanged glances with each other when they saw Hestia suddenly falling into silence. What's the matter? Noah keenly sensed that Hestia seemed to have something on her mind. Did something happen? Hestia didn't speak. She just raised her head and stared at Noah. After a while, she suddenly hugged Noah. Baal's eyes widened and his face flushed. Even Noah was a little startled by Hestia's sudden action. It couldn't be helped. The impact of Hestia's petite yet beautiful figure was simply too wonderful for words. No matter how much time had passed, Noah still couldn't get used to this contrast. Noah's tone sounded annoyed as he couldn't control his emotions. Hey, didn't I tell you not to hug me so easily? Before Noah could finish his sentence, his voice suddenly weakened. Hestia, who was hugging Noah tightly, was trembling slightly. Hestia's eyes, which were fixed on Noah, were also filled with extreme uneasiness. Noah had never seen such uneasiness in Hestia before. When Noah saw the uneasiness in Hestia's eyes, he suppressed the trembling in his heart and became speechless. Noah. Hestia's slender arms hugged Noah tighter and tighter. Her voice was filled with deep uneasiness. You won't leave me, right? When these words came out of Hestia's mouth, both Noah and Baal's expressions returned to normal. My lord. Baal opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but because he was too clumsy, he didn't know what to say. Noah regained his composure at once. His attention was no longer focused on Hestia's soft body. He put his hand on Hestia's head and gently stroked it as if he was comforting her. Why did you suddenly say that? Because I'm not as smart as Loki, and I'm not as charming as Freya. Even Apollo's brain is much better than mine. A useless god like me can't do anything other than hide at home and read books all day. Hestia's tone was full of dejection. You, on the other hand, not only have terrifying potential, talent, and possibilities that even the gods can't see the bottom of, but even Eulalie's only LV7 couldn't do anything to you. You uprooted the entire spawn of Apollo, and Freya and Loki even threatened that they couldn't take you away by force. Is it really okay for an excellent child like you to follow a useless god like me? Saying this, Hestia's lips trembled, and her expression revealed an unprecedented weakness. Do I really deserve to have you? In just 1 or 2 sentences, all of Hestia's uneasiness and weakness were exposed. But there was nothing she could do about it. Just like what Hesti had said, Noah's performance in the past 1 to 2 months was unparalleled. Even if he had obtained the 2 most powerful spawns of Olalai, Freya's spawn and Loki's spawn, which were also known as the twin kings of Olalai, Noah's performance was unparalleled. Freya once said that Noah's brilliance was the most dazzling she had ever seen in her life. Even if it was the eternal calamity, no one could match it. Although Hestia couldn't see the brilliance of Noah's soul, in the past 1 or 2 months, she had seen the incredible and terrifying possibilities in Noah's body with her own eyes. Therefore, Hestia had reason to believe everything Freya said. The child in front of her didn't dislike her, and formed a family bond with her called Spawn of Apollo. No matter in the past or in the future, there couldn't be a better existence than him. Did she really deserve to have such an excellent human being who was like the darling of the world? After the conversation with Freya and witnessing Noah's growth and achievements with her own eyes, Hestia really didn't think that she deserved to be with Noah. Even if Hestia was a god. Or rather, it was precisely because Hestia was a god that she thought that she wasn't a good match for a child from the lower realms. That was sufficient proof of how outstanding Noah was. Such an excellent child shouldn't be with a useless god like him, and she shouldn't be with a weak clan like Hestia's clan. Hestia, who had this thought, felt really uneasy and scared. This was definitely the first time in her life that she felt so uneasy and scared. One could imagine how important Noah was to her as a family member. Sensing the uneasiness and fear in Hestia's heart, Noah was silent for a long time. After a long time he sighed. Don't you want me to stay in this spawn of Apollo? How is that possible? Hestia couldn't help but raise her voice and refute. I'm glad that I met you in the bookstore at that time. This was the truth of Hestia's words. Hestia was really glad that she could meet Noah in the bookstore at that time. After all, at that time, Hestia basically had nothing and even relied on Hephaestus to maintain her basic necessities. She was poor and didn't even have the ability to feed herself a full meal, let alone a place to live. Apart from ordinary peasant children like Baal who came from the countryside and was rejected by any spawn of Apollo, basically no one would be willing to join such a spawn of Apollo, let alone a child with great potential. However, Noah, who was more excellent than anyone else in this world, chose to join Hestia's spawn of Apollo without the slightest disdain, so that Hestia wouldn't end up being kicked out of the house by Hephaestus. Therefore, Hestia really attached great importance to Noah. She attached great importance to Noah, and sometimes even couldn't help but rely on Noah. It was all because of that one chance encounter. However, the more she attached importance to Noah, the more she couldn't help but think this way. Was it really a good idea for such an excellent child like Noah to follow a useless god like her? She didn't know that the strength of the overgod and the size of their forces were not factors that could affect Noah's decision at all. Then, do you still remember what you said when you invited me to join your spawn of Apollo? Noah couldn't help but caress Hestia's head. You said that joining the spawn of Apollo wasn't to become a pawn of Apollo, but to become a family member, right? Hearing Noah's gentle voice, Hestia nodded subconsciously. That's what attracted me, Noah said with a smile. To me, family is a very special existence. A special existence, Hestia murmured. That's right, Noah said with some nostalgia. Because I was picked up by a very kind old man in the wild, and that's how I became a family member. Picked it up? Hestia was startled and said with uncertainty. So you? Yes, Noah said with a wry smile. I was originally an orphan, right? Hestia fell silent. Like you, I also feel that it was a very fortunate thing to be able to meet my grandfather at that time. Otherwise, I really don't know what would have become of me, Noah said and patted Hestia's head. So, perhaps you are not a smart god or perhaps a useless god, but you are a gentle god. It was your desire to have a family that attracted me, so I chose to join your spawn of Apollo. I don't care about anything else. After saying that, Noah put his mouth close to Hestia's ear and said in a teasing tone, Also, you are not a god without charm. There were many times when I almost couldn't control myself when you hugged me. Hestia blushed, but she kept looking at Noah's eyes and showed a beautiful smile. She buried her head in Noah's arms and closed her eyes. The strong uneasiness in her heart disappeared and was replaced by warmth. The warmth melted Hestia's heart. Chapter 908. Noah Doriel v. 2 Power. SSS, 1307. SSS, 2000. Durability. SSS, 1310. SSS, 2000. Dexterity. SSS, 1308. SSS, 2000. Dexterity. SSS, 1318. SSS, 2000. Magic. SSS, 1300. SSS, 2000. Mystery. IH Magic. Skill Frowny Face Protection from the World Permanent Skill. Equal to luck. Events that were directly related to luck would eventually lead to the most favorable outcome. The next day, Hasti updated Noah's ability value. Looking at the ridiculous increase in Noah's ability value, even though she was already numb to Noah's growth, she still could not help but twitch her face. Silently pressing the updated sacred text, and the blue light that bloomed from the engraving on Noah's back, Hestia turned around and sat at the end of the bed. She crossed her arms and fell into deep thought. Noah, who sensed that the ability value had been updated, turned his head and saw Hestia's face. He couldn't help but feel strange. What's wrong this time? It's nothing, Hestia replied half-heartedly. I'm just thinking about what you did during the war game. What did I do? Noah blinked. Is that important? I think if someone can grow up in the same way as you, what did you do during the war game will definitely become a piece of information that everyone in the world would treasure. Hestia's tone was quite strange. After all, the speed of growth is so fast that it's a bit strange. Noah was almost confused by Hestia's reaction and could only helplessly say, Don't worry. He could only say helplessly, Don't keep me in suspense. Is there something wrong with my ability value? There is definitely a problem, but it's not a bad problem. Hestia sighed, turned around and faced Noah. Although I don't know what else you did during the war game other than defeating Apollo's minions, your experience value seems to have accumulated a lot. You even accumulated a lot of great achievements. Accumulated a lot of great achievements? Noah's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes lit up. You mean? The proficiency of basic abilities has increased by about 3,500, and it has reached the peak. Even the development ability has increased to H level. Hestia smiled bitterly. Just like the last time, the basic ability at the top has become your cornerstone. In addition, you have accumulated enough achievements. You can already upgrade to the next level, which is LV3. Can I really level up? Although Noah already had some guesses, he was still a little surprised when he heard Hestia's confirmation. But why did the proficiency of basic abilities increase so much? What's more, it's enough to level up. I also want to know the answer to this question. Hestia asked. Undoubtedly, you just updated your ability value before the war game began. After the war game ended, your proficiency suddenly increased so much, and you even accumulated a lot of great achievements. What did you do in the past few days? What did I do? Noah frowned and then suddenly raised his eyebrows. Could it be that the slaying of Apollo had led to this level of improvement? After all, the amount of experience points and great achievements that could be accumulated from killing a god was definitely not small. Although this god was a little too easy to kill, that's right. However, that was probably because Apollo had really died. That was why he had accumulated so much EXP and great achievements, right? If Apollo was only fatally injured because of Noah and activated his divine power and was sent back to the heavens, then he probably wouldn't have accumulated experience value and great achievements. Perhaps, at that time, if he could fight and kill Apollo when he used his divine power, the experience points and great achievements would be the most terrifying, right? Thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but smile bitterly and looked at Hestia. In other words, it's time to choose a new ability again? Well, it's so cunning to change the topic. Hestia pouted, but she didn't continue to ask. After yesterday's heartfelt conversation, Hestia's feelings for Noah had risen by more than one level. If it was before, Hestia only chose to believe in Noah, then now she believed in Noah from the bottom of her heart. This time you can choose 2 abilities to develop, Hestia said directly. One is magic conduction, and the other is magic defense. Magic conduction and magic defense? Noah was puzzled. Could it be that they are all related to magic? That's right, Hestia explained. The first development ability is the ability of magic conduction. I should have told you last time that it can enhance the power of magic, expand the range of effect, increase the efficiency of mental power, magic power, and other magical benefits when using magic. Only people who have a good grasp of magic can learn this ability. Noah nodded. Indeed, when Noah was upgraded to LV2, magic conduction appeared in the development ability option. At that time, Hestia explained the effect of this ability to Noah. As for magic resistance, it's a new ability that will only appear when you gain experience points that can effectively defend against magic or reduce magic damage, Hestia said as she raised a finger. When you get this ability, it will increase your resistance to magic. No matter what kind of magic attack you receive, the effect and damage will be reduced. I see. Noah whispered softly. Then it is probably because I directly cracked the magic that Jacintos used on me last time, so I got this experience in this ability, right? Then which one are you going to choose? Magic conduction that can increase the effect and power of magic? Or magic defense that can reduce the effect and damage of magic? Hestia said to Noah. I suggest you choose magic defense. It is very useful to be able to reduce the effect and damage of magic. No. Noah shook his head without hesitation. I choose magic conduction. Noah didn't need the ability to reduce the effect and damage of magic at all. With the magic resistance from the Godslayer, why would he need magic defense? Really? Hestia puffed up her cheeks. Well, since it is Noah's choice, then you should have your own considerations. I will help you level up. Noah nodded. Noah Dory LV. 3 Strength, SSS, 2000, SSS, 1761, Durability, SSS, 2000, SSS, 1775 Dexterity, SSS, 2000, SSS, 1763 Dexterity, SSS, 2000, SSS, 1778 Magic, SSS, 2000, SSS, 1750 Mystery, H Magic Conduction, I Magic, Skills Frowny Face Protection from the World Permanent Skills, equal to Luck. Events that are directly related to luck will eventually lead to the most favorable result. I am more and more curious about what you did. Looking at Noah's upgraded ability, Hestia's face twitched again. After leveling up, all abilities are upgraded to SSS stage? There should be a limit, right? Noah could only laugh dryly. Hestia suddenly smiled and hugged Noah affectionately, as if she had changed her expression. Hey! What are you going to do today? After yesterday's conversation, Hestia became more and more unguarded with Noah. She would even hug Noah whenever she was free, making Noah suffer many times. I plan to go to the dungeon today. Is that so? Hestia pouted in disappointment. I really hope you can take some time to accompany me. Noah smiled wryly and patted Hestia's head, making her comfortable. As a matter of fact, Noah didn't hate being hugged by the soft and fluffy Hestia. Chapter 909. Ever since he was easily kidnapped by Apollo's minions and used to threaten Noah, Baal seemed to have become more determined than before. He had also become a lot stronger. Baal didn't intend to let Noah protect him like a bodyguard and send him into the dungeon safely. Instead, he decided to explore the dungeon alone. Although Baal wanted Noah to teach him some combat skills, it would waste Noah's time. Instead of protecting Baal, it would be better for Noah to use the time to improve himself instead of taking care of a newbie adventurer like Baal. That was Baal's idea. Of course, Noah did not have any objections. After all, Bale's combat skills were already in their embryonic form. What he needed to do next was to test it out and improve it until it became his own. Therefore, it was better for Bale to figure it out himself rather than letting Noah, who had never used daggers or short swords in combat, teach him. Noah would only teach him close combat skills. Bale would have to figure out how to use short swords in combat by himself. Early in the morning, Bale went out energetically, leaving Noah alone. He asked Hastia to help him upgrade his ability points. By the way, ever since Bale joined Hastia's minions, Hastia did not bring Noah into her room to upgrade his ability points. Instead, she helped Noah and Bale to upgrade their ability points in the hall. However, after yesterday's conversation, Hastia, who had completely calmed down, pulled Noah into her room to upgrade his ability points. According to Hastia, it was Noah's privilege to upgrade his ability points. As usual, Bale upgraded his ability points in the hall. Since Bale had gone out, Noah naturally went to the dungeon alone. When Noah arrived at the central square where the Tower of Babel was located, the surrounding crowd suddenly became restless. Look, that man. Is that the tyrant? The tyrant who could compete with the only LV7 in Eulalia and easily defeated all the minions of Apollo alone? I heard that it was only about 2 months ago that he received the favor. Bullshit, right? Of course it's bullshit. He just received the favor 2 months ago. 2 months later, he's already on par with LV7, and he even single-handedly defeated one of Eulalia's core clans? Not only that, I heard that his level is only LV2. Bullshit. Most likely bullshit. Is it from those gods who think it's not lively enough? Only they would spout nonsense about this kind of thing out of boredom. Yeah. Listening to the whispers coming from all directions, Noah remained calm on the surface, but he was more or less worried in his heart. Tyrant. This was a title. However, at first, this was not the title given by the gods to the senior adventurers who had risen to LV2 through the gods' assembly. Since the end of the war game, the residents of Eulalia did not know when it spread the name of Noah. The reason for this title was because Noah summoned a huge tornado in the war game and destroyed the entire city. He also killed the LV3 Jacinthus so quickly. After that day, every time the residents of Eulalia talked about this topic, they would use this saying. Too violent. Too cruel. It was too exciting. Just like a cruel and violent monarch. At some point in time, such a title had been placed on Noah's head. The gods seemed to be quite satisfied with this title. They felt that this title was too appropriate for Noah's performance. Therefore, the title of Tyrant was implemented without the decision of the gods, and even the guild officially recognized it. He got a title without going through the gods? It was estimated that only Noah had such treatment. But this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that because Noah's level of power was not like LV2, even if he got the title, the guild didn't seem to have made Noah's level public. Presumably, the guild was worried that once Noah's level was made public, and the adventurers in Eulalia knew that a LV2 could challenge a LV7 and defeat an entire clan of the Backbone, it would cause those adventurers to doubt their ability, value, and strength, right? In addition, Noah's leveling speed was so incredible that the guild decided to temporarily keep the opinion of making Noah's level and other growth records public. Therefore, outsiders basically didn't know what Noah's specific level was. And if the guild knew that Noah had leveled up again today and only spent 2 months to level up to LV3, wouldn't it be chaotic again? Noah secretly smiled bitterly in his heart, but he still looked calm on the surface. Under the awe and curiosity of the surrounding adventurers, he stepped into the gate of the Tower of Babel and entered the underground city. On the 17th floor of the underground city. Ooh! Amidst the roars that caused the air to tremble slightly, a large group of red-eyed minotaurs holding stone axes stomped their heavy footsteps that reverberated throughout the entire underground passage and charged toward Noah like a ferocious beast. Buzz, 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 buzz. However, almost at the same time, golden ripples fluctuated from the space behind Noah. They rubbed against the space itself, and various treasures such as sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and so on were ejected. They shot out like arrows leaving their bows. Puff, 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 puff. Like lasers, the treasures easily penetrated the muscles of the minotaurs, which were difficult to be cut by level 3 weapons. These LV 2 monsters of the underground city were buried in the dim passage one by one, dying an unnatural death. For these monsters that were only LV 2, Noah was already a little disdainful. If they were on the 37th floor, Noah would inevitably want to use these powerful monsters to train his basic abilities. However, the monsters on the middle floor were slightly weaker. After nearly 2 months of training in the underground city, Noah had already discovered that the more powerful the monsters were, not only would he obtain more experience points from killing the monsters, but he would also obtain more proficiency points when he trained his basic abilities compared to low-level monsters. Therefore, when facing LV 2 monsters, Noah did not intend to waste time on training his basic abilities. Instead, he killed them directly to gain experience points. For Noah, who was only at LV3, the experience points of LV 2 monsters were still worth it. Therefore, Noah did not ignore them. As for the numerous magic stones and dropped items from the monsters, they would be considered as Noah's items and would be recovered by the Gate of Babylon. It was precisely because of this that Noah did not waste any extra time and focused on his goal. Not long after, Noah arrived at the entrance to the 18th floor. The tall cavern was as crystal clear as before, as if it had been sealed in ice. It looked quite attractive. Noah did not hesitate to step into the vast cave. Crack! Almost at the same time, on one of the walls of the cavern, a clear cracking sound could be heard. Noah stopped in his tracks, turned his head, and looked at the wall. Crack, 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 crack. He saw that the mirror-like smooth huge wall constantly made cracking sounds, spreading cracks until a certain moment it exploded. Bang! Accompanied by a loud noise, a pitch-black giant broke free from the cracked wall and fell to the ground. Woo 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 woo! A roar like crying sounded from the pitch-black giant's mouth. Goliath! Noah was a little surprised. It's time to be born? Ignoring Noah's surprise, the huge monster with only the desire to destroy roared and charged towards Noah. Noah smiled slightly. Well, it's a good opportunity to experiment a little. Chapter 9:10. The birth of the floor master required a certain interval of time. And the floor master of the 17th floor was a very special floor master. The room where the floor master was located happened to block the entrance to the 18th floor. Originally, this could also be regarded as a test and boundary to the 18th floor. But there was a town on the 18th floor. And it was a town that was particularly good at extorting adventurers. In order to get more guests and earn more money, the floor master blocking the entrance to the 18th floor was a bit of an eyesore. Therefore, once the floor master of the 17th floor, Goliath, was not defeated for a long time, the adventurers in the town on the 18th floor would form their own team and annihilate Goliath. Because of this, it was not a simple thing to meet Goliath. At least, Noah had never met Goliath except for the time when he came with Loki's family. Now, the appearance of Goliath just allowed Noah to test a new discovery of his power. Woo 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 woo. Accompanied by a roar like crying, the pitch-black giant rushed in the direction of Noah like a heavy mountain under the shaking of the earth. However, Noah ignored Goliath, who was charging at him in a violent manner. Instead, he closed his eyes and immersed his consciousness into his body. In the depths of Noah's body, a dark hole like a black hole slowly rotated, constantly absorbing the newly generated magic power from Noah's body and storing it inside. That was Noah's magic power source. After this period of storage, the magic power stored in this magic power source was equivalent to nearly 1,000 times that of Noah before he got the magic power source. One had to know that Noah's magic power was boundless to begin with. Under such circumstances, it increased nearly 1,000 times. This level of magic power could only be described as terrifying. If he continued to accumulate like this, Noah would get endless magic power sooner or later. Even now, it was more or less possible to call it infinite. Looking at the magic power source in his body that stored a terrifying amount of magic power, Noah's mind moved. Buzz! Suddenly, the pitch-black hole-like mana source trembled violently, and the astonishing amount of mana stored within suddenly transformed into another kind of power at an even more astonishing rate. When Noah received Hestia's favor, the god's blood that Hestia had dripped into Noah's body had secreted a trace of power, which was then absorbed by the mana source. Noah's mana source seemed to have the ability to absorb the foreign energy that entered his body, remember it, and convert the stored mana into that power at will. Noah called this power divine power. At this moment, under Noah's urging, Noah's mana source that stored mana transformed into a divine power source that stored divine power. Then Noah abruptly opened his eyes. Bang! Like a golden flame, divine power burst out of Noah's body and turned into a wave of air that covered Noah's whole body. Immediately, in Noah's mind, the outline of the stone plate that was connected to the 10 patterns, and the pattern of an indomitable giant lit up. Giant that covers the sky and covers the earth with his hands, I will let this divine power flow into my body. From now on I will display the ultimate power that no one can match. When the giant incarnation spirit of speech fluctuated in the whole cavern, the flame-like wave of air on Noah's body suddenly expanded and soared into the sky. In the midst of that soaring aura, a mirage-like giant rose from Noah's body and instantly increased several times. That giant's whole body was golden, and its height was at least 20 meters. It directly reached the ceiling of the cavern, but there was only its upper body and no part below its waist. The roar of the pitch-black giant that was charging towards Noah's direction came to an abrupt stop, and even stopped its charging figure. Its pitch-black eyes widened like those of a demon, as if the scene in front of it caused its not-so-good brain to malfunction, and it froze on the spot. Who? At this moment only its upper body, which was somewhat illusory like a mirage, but was several times larger than Goliath, suddenly swung its arm. Bang 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 bang. Immediately, wherever the giant golden arm passed, the entire space was twisted into a mess. Bursts of air explosions were like bombs that exploded one after another, causing the giant arm to carry a terrifying force as it landed on the body of the pitch-black giant. Dong! The fist fell, and the terrifying power that struck the pitch-black giant's body through the golden giant's arm actually directly exploded the pitch-black giant with a muffled sound. Even the magic stone and the dropped items were twisted into pieces. Pa 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 pa. Along with it, the remaining power of the aftermath shook the ground of the cavern that seemed to be sealed in ice until it exploded inch by inch, stirring up gravel and dust that filled the entire cavern that was riddled with holes. In the next second, the illusory golden giant that maintained its posture of punching out like a mirage dissipated into the air, as if it had completed its task. Only Noah was left. Looking at the hole that was riddled with holes, cracks, and pieces of Goliath's flesh and magic stone fragments in front of him, he was immediately dumbfounded. Undoubtedly, I didn't use much divine power. If converted to magic power, the divine power that Noah had just used was estimated to be the equivalent of a few shots from the magic cannon, right? However, the divine power equivalent to a few shots from the magic cannon actually allowed the giant incarnation to exert such a degree of power? As expected, Noah murmured. As expected, using divine power to use authority will increase the power by a lot. Ever since he had obtained divine power, Noah had studied the effects of this power. Then Noah found that when he used divine power, his body would naturally have two reactions. One was that when the source of magic power was converted into a source of divine power, the sacred text on Noah's back would become very hot. The other was that when the source of magic power was converted into a source of divine power, the outline of Noah's authority, that was connected to the 10 patterns on the stone plate, would tremble. Putting the first reaction aside, the second reaction had already made Noah very concerned. However, at that time, Noah's authority had not yet reached the point where he could use it, so Noah did not immediately explore it. Today, after finally remembering this matter, Noah began the experiment. Everything in front of him was the result of the experiment, and this result made Noah somewhat overjoyed. Although I more or less guessed that using divine power to use authority would have some kind of effect, I didn't expect the effect to be so obvious. If he thought about it carefully, it was actually very easy to understand. Noah's authority was originally usurped from God. Although after being absorbed by Noah's tyrannical physique, this power had become Noah's personal possession, but its essence was still the power of God, and this had not changed. And divine power was also the power obtained from Hestia, a god. Then using divine power to use authority was definitely more suitable than using magic power to use authority. Even if the gods of the two worlds are somewhat different in nature, if I use the divine power of this world to use authority, it should still be able to have a good effect. I originally thought so, but now it seems that divine power is more suitable to use the power of authority than I thought. Noah felt the massive amount of divine power flowing in the source of divine power in his body, and felt a burst of joy in his heart. I don't know if in the future I can have a power that is more suitable for authority than divine power, and make my authority even more powerful? Thinking so, Noah could not help but raise the corner of his mouth. The future is really worth looking forward to. These words had just come out of Noah's mouth when an accident happened. Rumble. All of a sudden, the ground began to shake without warning. Noah, who was not mentally prepared, almost staggered and fell to the ground. Fortunately, he reacted in time, stabilized his body, and cried out in surprise. What's going on? This question in this floor where there was no one, naturally no one would answer Noah. However, the ground shook more and more violently. Chapter 9:11. Rumble. In just a few seconds, the ground shook so violently that the surrounding walls began to scatter dust, and some places even began to crack. Noah, who was kneeling on the ground with one knee, could only try his best to maintain stability. Feeling the ground shaking more and more violently, his heart was more or less bewildered. At this time, Noah could not help but think of something that everyone in this world knew. The underground city was alive. At this time, the underground city's shaking suddenly stopped as if it had stopped. Gotcha! Such a sound rang from the ground in front of the wall that just collapsed and gave birth to Goliath. That was the sound of the ground suddenly cracking open a huge gully. Gotcha, gotcha! In the next moment, with the cracked gully as the center, the ground began to protrude, as if something was drilling inside, pushing away a large number of rocks and emerging from there. Seeing this scene, Noah's eyes focused. Because Noah clearly saw it. In the protruding ground, in the small hill that was buried by rocks and soil, a pair of pitch-black eyes suddenly lit up. Rumble. The ground once again produced an extremely violent vibration, as if the entire 17th floor was trembling, constantly emitting wails. And in this process, in front of the protruding ground became higher and higher, and the rocks and soil that were pushed away also became more and more. When it reached the peak, it was like a collapsed snow mountain, crashing to the ground, setting off thick smoke and dust. Then the huge monster that drilled out of the ground and was buried by rocks and soil finally revealed its entire body. Its entire body was pitch black like sewage. It had a human-like body outline. Its height was more than 10 meters. Its skin was even darker. Its devil-like eyes flashed with a ferocious scarlet light. That was the floor master named Goliath. However, the depth of its skin was even darker than Goliath's, and its body was almost 2 or 3 times larger, causing this huge alien to emit a terrifying aura. Woo 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 woo. The roar that sounded like crying was like a substantial shockwave that exploded and shook the surroundings. Looking at this scene, Noah's face gradually darkened. It was impossible for him not to have doubts in his heart. Moreover, there were a lot of them. For example, why would a floor master, who was just killed and should have taken 1 or 2 months to be reborn, suddenly appear? For example, why was this Goliath so obviously different from the Goliath he usually met? However, that was something that needed to be considered later. That was because the ferocious pitch-black giant would not give Noah much time to consider. Lowering its head, the pitch-black giant's eyes suddenly shifted to Noah, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground. A ferocious glint flashed in its eyes as it slowly opened its mouth. Almost at the same time, Noah's outstanding senses gave him a warning. Without any hesitation, Noah was like a crouching cheetah. He spun around and shot up, dodging to the side. Boom! The pitch-black Goliath, who opened its mouth in the direction of Noah, suddenly made a sound like a cannonball. Immediately, a shockwave that could not be seen by the naked eye was like a real cannonball. It burst out, cut through the air, and instantly fell on the position where Noah was previously. Boom! The ground that was hit by the impact cannonball that could not be captured by the naked eye exploded without any suspense, stirring up gravel and the aftermath of the energy that blew in all directions. Seeing this, Noah, who dodged, was speechless. Now I can be sure that it is definitely not an ordinary Goliath. After all, an ordinary Goliath would never release such a long-range attack. In addition, the breath of the pitch-black Goliath was also stronger than the breath of the ordinary Goliath. It should not only have the attack that the ordinary Goliath did not have, but also the strength that the ordinary Goliath did not have, right? At least, Noah felt that this pitch-black Goliath was definitely not only LV. 4. In terms of level classification, a conservative estimate is that it should have reached LV5. After coming to such a conclusion, Noah's eyes were cold. Unfortunately, it is only LV5. After the words, Noah's figure stagnated, and then like a gust of wind, he rushed forward quickly. Woo 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 woo. The pitch-black Goliath suddenly roared in the direction of Noah, who was rushing toward him. Boom! With the sound of the cannonball, the shockwave that could not be captured by the naked eye was like an invisible cannonball. It shot in front of Noah almost in the blink of an eye. The powerful pressure carried by the impact cannonball caused the surrounding air to vibrate slightly. If it was another person, even if it was LV5 like the pitch-black Goliath, it would be extremely troublesome for this invisible attack. Unfortunately, the attack that could not be captured by the naked eye was basically no different from a visible attack for Noah, who had the sensing ability. So Noah clenched his fist, and a bright vortex of air fluctuated on his fist. Under Noah's waving, it fiercely blasted toward the incoming impact cannonball. Boom! With a loud explosion, the invisible impact cannonball was blown up by Noah's annihilation blow, and turned into a gust of wind, brushing past Noah's body and blowing around. However, the space in front of Noah suddenly shook, and a fist like a boulder rubbed against the air, carrying a violent airflow, and blasted in front of Noah's eyes. In the face of this punch, Noah's figure swayed strangely, like a leaf blown away by the wind, and directly dodged the pitch-black Goliath's fist. Boom! The huge fist fell on the ground, and once again the ground was blown up, and a small crater was created. Buzz! At this moment, Noah, who had dodged to the side of the pitch-black Goliath's fist, suddenly fluctuated with a golden ripple, and a variety of relics popped out, shooting out like lightning. Puff puff puff. The extremely sharp relics fell directly on the pitch-black Goliath's head, and with a tearing sound, they pierced through the muscles on Goliath's face. However, they only pierced halfway and were stuck, unable to go any further. Woo 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 woo. The pitch-black Goliath roared angrily, and suddenly waved its huge palm, slapping toward Noah. Noah only felt that the whole world seemed to have darkened, and he immediately retreated. Boom! The huge palm slammed on the ground, causing the ground to shake and cracks spread out. The skin is quite hard, even an E-grade relic can't penetrate it. Noah stared at the pitch-black Goliath. In the golden ripples around him, a variety of relics, such as sabers, swords, spears, halberds, and other relics, emerged again. Then let's try a D-grade relic. As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp relic immediately turned into a stream of light, shooting out like a laser. Woo 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 woo. The pitch-black Goliath roared angrily, and this was the last sound that it made. With a little arc trajectory, the relic shot up, and with the pitch-black Goliath's huge body, it was impossible for it to avoid. Puff 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 puff. Therefore, the D-grade relic rain fell on the pitch-black Goliath's body, piercing through its body, and the pitch-black Goliath's body was full of holes. The pitch-black Goliath suddenly froze on the spot. Boom! After a while, the body of the floor master, whose level was enough to be classified as LV5, turned into a burst of ashes all over the sky. It burst open and scattered around, leaving only a huge magic stone and a piece of curtain-like skin that disappeared. LV5 Goliath? The golden ripples behind him began to shrink. Noah looked at the huge magic stone and the curtain-like skin, and he frowned deeply. What the hell is going on? After pondering for a while, Noah could not figure out the reason, and he could only helplessly shake his head. I'll ask Hestia when I go back. Chapter 9:12. It took a little more time. Noah, who had successively defeated a LV4 floormaster and a LV5 floormaster, did not stay in the dungeon. Instead, he first went to the safety floor on the 18th floor to check the situation. After confirming that the 18th floor was not affected by the abnormality on the 17th floor, he returned to the 11th floor. It seems that only the 17th floor should be affected. The rest of the floors did not even have the slightest vibration. On the 11th floor, which was filled with thick white fog, Noah could not help but worry as he moved toward the entrance to the 10th floor. I hope that at that time, there were no other abnormalities on the 17th floor, and that the adventurers exploring the 17th floor were not affected. Although he did not know why the 17th floor had such an abnormality, If the problem was with Noah and the rest of the innocent adventurers were affected, then Noah would definitely not be able to sleep well. After all, the abnormality on the 17th floor only happened after Noah used his divine power and defeated the LV for Goliath in one blow. Noah had reason to believe that the abnormality was with him. Is it the problem with the divine power? Or is it the problem with authority? Noah was puzzled. It should not be the problem with authority. In the dungeon, Noah had used authority several times before. At that time there was no problem. Then, the problem today should not be with authority. Then, is it the problem with the divine power? Noah thought to himself. Could it be that the god of this world has something to do with the dungeon? He could not figure it out. Noah's brain was not bad. However, he had only been in this world for about 2 months. There were many things that Noah had not come into contact with. In the case of insufficient information, no matter how good Noah's brain was, he could not figure out why. It's more reliable to go back and ask Hestia. In the end, Noah could only come to this conclusion helplessly. He quickened his pace and continued to walk forward in the thick fog. Just like that, Noah paid attention to the other floors to see if there were any problems as he made his way to the ground. He didn't have the time to deal with the monsters he encountered along the way, so he avoided them and arrived on the 7th floor. As soon as he entered the 7th floor, Noah heard an angry shout. "Why are you dawdling over there? Hurry up and catch up." The overly violent scolding made Noah unconsciously turn his eyes to the source. Then Noah saw it. 2 people were walking towards them from a passageway at the side. It was a combination of a man and a woman. The man was an adventurer who wore leather armor and had a large sword on his back. He had a fierce look in his eyes. The woman was carrying a backpack that was several times larger than her body. She was wearing a white robe and seemed to be a support. She was a very petite young girl. Noah could vaguely see a few strands of chestnut-colored hair under the hood of the petite young girl's white robe. At that moment, Noah raised his eyebrows and stopped in his tracks. Because there was still a certain distance between them, the male adventurer and the female support did not notice Noah. They were still walking towards Noah slowly. Of course, it was fine if they were just walking. What Noah was concerned about was what the male adventurer said. What a useless piece of trash. The male adventurer did not care about the feelings of the female support who lowered her head. He scolded her with a disdainful tone. "You are just a useless piece of trash who can only be a porter. If you can't even carry a backpack, what's the use of you?" Under the male adventurer's insults, the female support only lowered her head and did not say a word. Her behavior encouraged the male adventurer's arrogance. "If you continue to dawdle and cause me to be unable to earn a sum of money, you won't get a single cent today," the male adventurer sneered. "At least when I am surrounded by monsters, you can be the bait support." Noah, who was watching the scene from afar, frowned. Noah knew that most adventurers had the ugly side of looking down on professional supporters. This was because professional supporters were those who did not have the ability to do other jobs. When there was no other way, they could only be pure porters. Adventurers would indeed look down on such people. Even though they knew that support was indispensable in the dungeon, most of the adventurers didn't have this kind of awareness. It was obvious that the scene in front of them was an arrogant adventurer bullying a professional support. Moreover, the so-called professional support was someone who more or less had some ties with Noah. Could it be that the child is still doing that kind of shady business? The more he thought about it, the deeper Noah's frown became. However, Noah would not be so nosy because of a person whom he had only met once. If it was only the child who was willing to degrade himself, then Noah was in no position to care so much. With that thought in mind, Noah stopped thinking too much and walked straight over. As he walked, the sound of footsteps could be heard. The male adventurer and the female supporter finally discovered Noah. Upon seeing Noah, the female supporter's expression changed abruptly. She hurriedly lowered her head and covered her face with the hood of her robe. The male adventurer widened his eyes, and his body stiffened. After he came back to his senses, he hurriedly moved to the side to make way, and at the same time, he cursed at the female support in a low voice. "What are you doing? Hurry up and move aside. That's the tyrant. If you want to die, don't involve me." After the war game, there was no one in Eulalia who did not know Noah. Naturally, there was no one who did not know how terrifying Noah was. He could destroy a city with a wave of his hand. In an instant, he could defeat the entire backbone of the clan tribe. He could even compete with the only LV7 in Eulalia. The gods were full of praise for this man. Even the main gods of Freya and Loki, who were known as the two kings of Eulalia, claimed that they wanted to recruit him. There was no doubt that Noah had become a popular person in the eyes of the gods and people of Eulalia. In addition, they had seen Noah's strength when facing the clan tribe of Apollo from the divine mirror. How could the LV1 low-level adventurer who could only mess around on the 7th floor not have a heart of fear? Bullying the weak and fearing the strong. This was what the male adventurers showed. After being scolded by the male adventurer in such a low voice, the female supporter seemed to have remembered this matter and quickly hid to the side. She still lowered her head and did not dare to look at Noah. Noah naturally saw this scene. However, Noah did not say anything. He just turned a blind eye and walked past under the gaze of a man and a woman. Phew! Until Noah walked past, the male adventurer and the female supporter were relieved at the same time. Is that the highest level of adventurers in Eulalia? The male adventurer licked the corner of his mouth and raised an arrogant arc. One day, I will also become such an existence and let the people of Eulalia make way in front of me. Hearing the arrogant words of the male adventurer, the female supporter just looked at the male adventurer with a gaze like looking at an insect, then immediately turned her head and looked at Noah's back that gradually left. Her eyes were quite complicated. Don't look, the male adventurer mocked. No matter how much you look, you won't become such an existence, Miss Porter. The female supporter bit her lips and a trace of self-mockery appeared in her eyes. That's true. If I could become an existence like that person, how could I fall to this point? In order to get out of this predicament, the female supporter raised her head and looked at the male adventurer. To be precise, it should be said that she was looking at the big sword on the back of the male adventurer. Because of the movement of raising her head, the hood of the robe slid down from the female supporter's head, revealing a head with chestnut-colored shoulder-length hair and a young face. If Bale was here, he would definitely notice it. This young girl was the one who had stolen Bale's level 3 weapon, Miss Supporter. Luluka Urda. Chapter 9:13. The dungeon changed. In the headquarters of Hastia's clan, Noah told Hastia about what happened on the 17th floor. Hastia was startled and became suspicious. Why did the dungeon change? I don't know, that's why I came back to ask you, Noah said with a wry smile. I had just finished off the floormaster, Goliath, when there was a sudden vibration on the 17th floor. Then another Goliath appeared. Moreover, even his potential ability definitely surpassed the Goliath of level 4, and reached the level of level 5. LV5? Hastia asked in surprise. Really? I've never heard of such a thing before. Really? Noah asked. In other words, Goliath, who had never been at LV4 before, suddenly leveled up to LV5? Not only Goliath, but I've never heard of a level 5 Goliath being upgraded. After the level 5 Goliath was defeated, another level 5 Goliath appeared, Hestia said with uncertainty. Could it be that you're mistaken? Do you think I'm mistaken about such a big thing? Noah rolled his eyes. Whether it's a level 4 Goliath or a level 5 Goliath, I defeated them myself. Can't I see the difference between them? That's true. Hestia frowned. Then what's going on? Seeing Hestia's frown, Noah felt that the time was right and asked the question he was most concerned about. Is it possible that external factors caused the changes in the dungeon? External factors? Hestia looked at Noah. What do you mean? For example, if a condition is met, the dungeon will immediately breed a level 5 Goliath that is more powerful than the previous level 5 Goliath, Noah said. When a condition like defeating a level 5 Goliath appears, the dungeon will be triggered and breed a new level 5 Goliath. Is it possible? Well, Hestia tilted her head with a troubled look on her face. It's possible, but I've never heard of it before. Perhaps it's not a condition? Noah's eyes flashed. It's also possible that there's a presence or power in the dungeon that shouldn't exist. For example, the divine power of your god. Hearing this, Hastia's expression froze. Her frown deepened. Finally, she lowered her head and muttered in a low voice. She lowered her head and said, "In that case, it's possible." Is it possible? Noah noticed the change in Hestia's attitude and quickly asked, "How should I put it?" "It's just like what you said," Hestia said as she looked at Noah seriously. "It's possible that a god broke into the dungeon and caused the strange changes." "Really?" Noah's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't show it on his face. "Why would a god enter the dungeon and cause the strange changes?" "Because the dungeon won't allow us gods to enter." Hestia sighed. "Perhaps you don't know, but the guild is prohibiting gods from entering the dungeon." "Prohibiting gods from entering the dungeon?" Noah frowned. "Why, didn't I tell you? The dungeon will not allow us gods to enter." Hestia said earnestly. "It's like a repulsion reaction. The dungeon is rejecting us gods. If we enter the dungeon, we'll incur the wrath of the dungeon. The dungeon will be angry." Noah was curious. "The dungeon will be angry? Don't underestimate the dungeon, Noah," Hestia said solemnly to Noah. "The dungeon is alive. It can give birth to creatures called monsters and produce all kinds of resources that can't be found on the surface. This is why it repels gods like us. If gods like us enter the dungeon and incur its wrath, what's so strange about that? That means the dungeon isn't only alive, but it also has consciousness." Noah was taken aback. "It can't be, right? Should I say it has consciousness? Or is it an instinct of the dungeon?" Hestia looked conflicted as she didn't know how to explain to Noah. She shrugged her shoulders and said, "The dungeon is full of mysteries. Because there are too many unknowns in the dungeon, it attracts adventurers from all over the world to explore. Whether the dungeon's rejection of the gods is due to the dungeon's own consciousness or pure instinct, it's up to you to find out. We, the gods, can only observe the progress of the children." Noah nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe it's just like what you said. Some stupid god broke into the dungeon and was discovered by the dungeon. That's why this happened, right?" Hestia waved her hand nonchalantly, but then she became angry again. "Fortunately, my Noah is powerful enough. A level 5 floor owner is nothing. If my Noah was injured, I'd kill the idiot who broke into the dungeon." Hearing Hestia's indignant words, Noah could only let out a hollow laugh. If the mutation was caused by the dungeon's rejection of the dungeon, then it was probably caused by Noah, not the idiot god. Perhaps because Noah used his divine power in the dungeon mistook Noah for the god of this world. That was why the mutation occurred and the level 5 Goliath was created. It seemed that he had to think carefully before using his divine power in the dungeon. However, if he made good use of it, perhaps Noah could keep farming the level 5 Goliath on the 17th floor. Noah felt happy when he thought of this. At this moment, Hestia's eyes rolled, and she suddenly pounced on Noah, hugged him, and said expectantly, "Noah, since you came out of the dungeon, why don't you go on a date with me?" Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Noah only found out recently. The goddess named Hestia was actually quite possessive. In order to make Noah happy, Hestia worked very hard. After getting rid of Hestia's entanglement, Noah walked out of the base camp of Hestia's clan to her dissatisfaction. Although Hestia was a goddess, she looked like a 14 or 15-year-old child, if you didn't look at a particularly prominent part. If you went on a date with such a goddess, those gods who wanted to see the world in chaos would be very happy to publicize some things. For example, Noah had some special hobbies. In that case, Noah would really be too ashamed to show his face. Therefore, although it would make Hestia unhappy, Noah felt that it was better to have fun at home and not go out to show off. In short, Noah didn't hate going on a date with Hestia. Thinking of the goddess's resentment, Noah couldn't help but laugh. "When I go back, I'll bring some gifts for Hestia." Muttering to himself, Noah turned into a side alley. This time, Noah didn't plan to go to the dungeon. He wanted to find a place to fill his stomach. Hestia didn't seem to expect Noah to come back so quickly, so she didn't buy Noah's lunch. Noah had to find his own food. "Let's go to the rich mistress." After saying that, Noah was just about to take a shortcut when he heard some flustered footsteps from the depths of an alley next to him. No, it wasn't one but two. Moreover, the two footsteps were getting closer to Noah. Noah curiously turned into the alley where the footsteps were coming from. Then, the figure of a petite girl who was running while hugging a heavy sword entered Noah's eyes. Seeing the petite girl, Noah couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. How could there be such a coincidence? Chapter 9:14. Looking at the petite girl who was running blindly towards him while hugging a huge sword that was completely disproportionate to her body, Noah raised his eyes slightly and looked behind the petite girl. There, a male adventurer in leather armor was glaring at the petite girl who was running in front of him with a ruthless expression. There were even green veins popping out on his temples and he looked extremely angry. "You damned piece of trash. Let's see where you're going to run to." The male adventurer's roar caused a look of fear to appear on the petite girl's face. However, Noah, who was in front of the petite girl, could clearly see this scene. Even though there was great fear on her face, there was still a trace of stubbornness and unyielding in the eyes of the petite girl. She hugged the huge sword tightly and gritted her teeth as she ran forward with all her might. As a result, the petite girl who had to take care of the pursuers behind her did not notice at all. At the corner in front of her there was a person. Seeing that the petite girl was about to crash into him, Noah turned his body slightly and dodged. However, this action also caused the petite girl to notice Noah's existence. She turned her head and looked in front of her. Immediately, her eyes became flustered. In a moment of panic, the petite girl who was running forward suddenly stumbled and fell forward. Seeing this, Noah, who was turning his body to the side, squatted down and reached out a hand to catch the petite girl who was falling. He allowed her to fall on his arm so that she would not hit the ground directly. However, the huge sword that the petite girl was hugging was thrown out and fell to the ground with a clang. Looking at the huge sword that was thrown away, the little girl let out a cry of surprise. She couldn't help but reach for the huge sword. She didn't even notice that she had fallen into someone's arm. Noah could only helplessly say, "Are you all right?" Hearing this voice, the petite girl finally noticed Noah's existence. However, when the little girl turned around and saw Noah's full face, her pupils shrank and her expression changed completely. Facing that familiar cute face and big round eyes, Noah smiled indifferently. "Long time no see, Lily." Lily's mouth trembled slightly. She seemed to want to say something, but she also seemed to be afraid and in disbelief. She was stunned and did not respond at all. It was at this moment that the male adventurer caught up with them. "Did I catch up to you? Despicable human race." Only then did Lily react. In a panic, she ran away from Noah and sat on the ground. It seemed that Lily was more afraid of Noah than the male adventurer. That was only natural. Compared to an unknown adventurer, Noah's reputation was undoubtedly the loudest in all of Eulalie. The two were not on the same level at all. If she had to choose who she was more afraid of, it would naturally be Noah. Of course, the reason why Lily was so afraid of Noah was because she had previously stolen the level 3 weapon that Noah had given to Bale. Lily should be afraid of being pursued by Noah, right? Little did he know that the reason why Lily was able to successfully steal Bale's weapon was mostly because Noah had no intention of stopping her. If Noah had really wanted to stop Lily, no matter how good she was at stealing, she would not have been able to steal from Noah. The male adventurer who caught up from behind also noticed Noah, and the violent look on his face turned into shock. It's you again?" In the morning, Noah had met the male adventurer and Lily on the 7th level of the underground city. So now that they met again here, both the male adventurers and Lily were very surprised. Naturally, Noah also felt that it was too much of a coincidence. But since Noah had met them, it would not be strange for him to ask a few questions, right? Noah glanced at Lily, who was paralyzed on the ground and looking at him with a frightened expression. He then glanced at the male adventurer, patted his knee, and stood up. "What are you guys doing?" His words woke Lily and the male adventurer up from their stupor. This despicable human stole my sword." The male adventurer hurriedly pointed at Lily. "I'm here to retrieve my sword." As expected. In the morning, when they had met on the 7th level of the underground city, the male adventurer had been carrying a large sword on his back. But now the large sword had fallen into Lily's hands. In addition to Lily's previous record and the chase just now, Noah had already guessed the gist of it. At that moment, Noah frowned and looked at Lily. "Are you still doing this kind of thing?" Originally, Noah thought that Lily might be in need of money, so he let Lily steal Bale's weapon. With Lily's status, even if she was in need of money, a weapon worth 700,000 or 800,000 Varus should be able to solve the problem. Thinking that if he helped Lily solve this problem, Lily would not steal anymore, so Noah let Lily go. But in the end, this young lady was still a thief? Did she have her difficulties? Or did she really give up on herself? Seeing Noah frown, Lily was even more afraid, and her body shrank into a ball. The male adventurer probably thought that Noah was a comrade on his side, and he was overjoyed all of a sudden. That's right. A useless porter actually dares to steal from us adventurers. You deserve to die. The male adventurer pulled Noah to his side and laughed angrily at Lily, who was sitting on the ground. You piece of trash, see if I don't teach you a lesson. Just as the male adventurer was about to walk towards Lily, a large sword was suddenly thrown into the air towards the direction of the male adventurer. Before the male adventurer could react, the large sword crashed into his arms, causing him to catch it in a hurry. He stared blankly at Noah, who threw the sword to him. The sword is yours, right? Noah said calmly. Take it with you. The male adventurer pointed at Lily with uncertainty. But this little human. What? Noah looked at the male adventurer with a smile that did not seem like a smile. Do you think that I will watch you commit violence? But look, she's a thief and a useless porter, the male adventurer said with a forced smile. A piece of trash like her actually dares to steal from us great adventurers. If we don't teach her a lesson, won't anyone be able to bully us? Hearing this, Noah laughed. His laughter was somewhat sarcastic. Walking forward, Noah looked at the stiff-faced male adventurer up close. He extended a hand and pointed at the male adventurer's chest. Since you can bully others, why can't others bully you? The male adventurer's face began to twitch. If you bully the weak here, then can those who are stronger than you bully you too? Noah pushed the male adventurer away. If you can't even figure out such a problem and think highly of yourself here, I advise you to stop being an adventurer. Otherwise, you'll only be able to do so for the rest of your life, Mr. Great Adventurer. The male adventurer's face immediately turned red, and his expression became distorted. However, he couldn't say a word to refute, let alone refute Noah. Damn it! The male adventurer could only glare at Lily resentfully. Consider yourself lucky. After saying that, the male adventurer left with a face full of misfortune. After the male adventurer left, Noah glanced at Lily, who was sitting on the ground, paralyzed. As you can see, most adventurers are like this. If you don't want to encounter the same thing again, I advise you to stop. Lily bit her lips tightly, and her delicate body trembled. She lowered her head, but her voice was unyielding. You speak as if you are not an adventurer. Although this voice was very soft, Noah still heard it. And from Lily's voice, Noah could hear a tinge of hatred. It seems that you are more troublesome than I thought. Noah crossed his arms and looked at Lily. Then let's have a chat. Chapter 9:15. Chat. Perhaps Lily felt that she couldn't escape even if she wanted to, so she went all out and taunted. I'm sorry, Lily has nothing to talk about with the adventurer. From Lily's voice, Noah did hear a kind of unapproachable meaning. Obviously, Lily didn't have any good impression of the so-called adventurers, and she hated them. However, that was also natural. As a professional support, Lily must have been humiliated by those unruly adventurers more than once like today. So, Lily hated adventurers. How is it strange? Your words sound like those women who hold the idea that no man is good. Right? Noah curled his lips. Just because of the existence of that kind of trash, you think there's no good adventurer in this world? No choice, at least Lily has never touched such a person, so Lily hates adventurers the most. Lily sneered and said self-deprecatingly. Anyway, Lily is such a person. Not only does she have no ability, she can only be reduced to being a support. Furthermore, she has always been stealing other people's things. Even Lily herself hates this kind of Lily. The famous tyrant naturally wouldn't like someone like Lily. Are you going to be stubborn this time? Noah looked down at Lily, who was sitting on the ground, and asked such a question. Since you know that it's annoying to steal other people's things, but you still do that kind of thing knowingly. Are you so short of money? Yes, Lily is short of money, and I'm short of a lot of money. Lily met Noah's gaze and looked over. So, Lily has already sold the level 3 weapon produced by Hephaestus's clan. Even if you teach Lily a lesson, Lily won't be able to return it. Hearing this, Noah didn't speak anymore. He just looked directly at Lily's big round eyes as if he wanted to see through everything about Lily. His deep eyes almost made Lily have a feeling that she would be sucked in. Under such a direct gaze, Lily couldn't help but feel a little timid. She subconsciously lowered her head and looked away. After a long time, Noah withdrew his gaze and turned around. I see. Since that's the case, you can wait for me at the Central Square tomorrow morning. Lily was suddenly stunned. Central Plaza? Why? Is it strange? Noah said without turning his head. Don't you usually look for adventurers to team up with? Hearing this, Lily was a little unable to react. Indeed, Lily usually looked for adventurers and begged them to team up with her. But that wasn't really looking for teammates but looking for prey. In order to collect the money she needed, Lily had been using this method to explore the dungeon with the adventurers who had formed temporary teams. Then, she would look for opportunities to steal their valuables. It was a tried and tested method. Hence, to Lily, the adventurers who teamed up with her were not her teammates, but her prey. It was also because of this that Lily couldn't react to Noah's words. This was because Lily didn't know what Noah meant by that. Noah didn't know if he had expected Lily's reaction, but he smiled with his back facing Lily. Aren't you short of money? Then come and be my supporter. Be your supporter? Lily, who hadn't reacted yet, was bewildered by this sudden declaration. Think about it. Noah didn't give Lily time to react and threw this sentence at her. Tomorrow, gather at the fountain in the Central Plaza. If I don't see you when I arrive, take it that you're not coming. I won't wait for you. After saying that, Noah waved his hand and went straight into the alley next to him. Lily was left alone as she stared blankly in the direction that Noah had left. Her expression was extremely uncertain. The next day, Noah got up when Hestia was still sleeping. After changing his clothes, he went out directly. At this time, the sun had just risen, but there were many pedestrians on the street outside. Most of them were adventurers who were ready to go. They were all walking towards the Dungeon of Babel. Noah blended into the crowd with ease. While the pedestrians around him were pointing and gossiping, he moved in the direction of the Central Square. Bale got up earlier than Noah. Therefore, Bale had already set off for the dungeon. Noah was about an hour later than Bale, which showed how hard Bale worked. Now Noah had really become famous. Being famous had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that when Noah walked on the street, the people around him would make way for him. They wouldn't crowd together with Noah. The disadvantage was that the people around him were talking about him and pointing at him. Fortunately, Noah had long been used to people's gazes, so he didn't stop and went all the way to the Central Plaza without any obstacles. At the intersection of the 8 streets that connected to Olalai in all directions, there was a fountain in front of the Tower of Babel. That was the fountain closest to the Tower of Babel. As soon as he arrived at the Central Plaza, Noah glanced at the fountain and saw it. In front of the fountain, there was a very petite girl of the dwarf clan. She was carrying a huge backpack and had her head down. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Seeing this, Noah stopped, shrugged his shoulders, and walked towards the fountain. Obviously, the girl of the dwarf clan was not really paying attention to the surroundings. Even with her head down, she still noticed Noah's approach and looked at him. When they met for the first time, although Lily had bad intentions, at least she put on a good front. Her cute face would have a bright smile from time to time. However, at this moment, Lily's cute face was no longer as cheerful as when they first met. Instead, it was cold and vigilant. In the past, it was Lily's acting skill to put on a cheerful and lively appearance in front of others. On the other hand, Noah already knew most of Lily's background and knew clearly what this young lady was doing on a daily basis. Lily didn't have to put on a show anymore. She didn't hesitate to show her dislike and vigilance towards adventurers. Unfortunately, Noah turned a blind eye to it. He brushed past Lily and walked toward the Tower of Babel. Since you are ready, let's go. Lily stared at Noah's back and followed him silently. While following him, she spoke in a low voice. As she walked, she whispered, "Now, can you tell Lily what Lord Noah is going to do? Do you even need to ask?" Noah answered without hesitation. "Of course, it's to enter the dungeon." "Is that so?" Lily's voice wasn't relaxed at all. Instead, it had a tinge of sarcasm. Could it be that Lord Noah really only intends to team up with Lily? What else? What do you think I'm going to do to you? Noah kept walking forward with a calm look on his face. If I had intended to do something to you, I would have done it yesterday. I wouldn't have needed to lure you into the dungeon. Aren't you aware of that? That's why you're here today, isn't it? Sherlock said as he shook his head. Does that mean Lord Noah only wants to explore the dungeon with Lily? Lily's tone was rather unpleasant. Do you think Lily will believe you? If you don't believe me, you can leave now. I won't stop you, Noah said calmly. I'm only giving you a chance. It's up to you whether you want to seize it or not. Chance? Lily frowned. What chance? A chance for you to achieve your goal and turn over a new leaf, Noah said. As fellow sufferers who have similar stories, we can empathize with each other. Lily was at a loss for words. At this time, Noah changed the topic. What's the deepest floor that you've been to? Lily was silent for a while. After a while, she gave up and spoke. Lily followed a team and reached level 11. Level 11. Noah smiled suddenly. Let's go to level 17 today. Chapter 9:16. Roar, 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 roar. On the 17th floor of the dungeon, in one of the passageways, a group of monsters with grayish-black fur, flames in their mouths, and crimson eyes that looked like hellhounds roared angrily. They rushed out of the passageway in groups and pounced forward. Swish, 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 swish. In front of the pack of hellhounds, a figure stood motionless. Golden ripples fluctuated in the surrounding space, and sharp weapons popped out one after another. The sharp weapons turned into streams of light and shot out like arrows, piercing through the air with a sharp sound. Poochie, poochie, poochie. Every time the sharp weapons that turned into streaks of light streaked across the space and shot out from the golden ripples with a sharp piercing sound, shrouding the group of hellhounds that were constantly surging over, the continuous sound of flesh being penetrated would resound. The extremely sharp weapons accurately pierced through the heads of the hellhounds, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Under such circumstances, the bodies of the hellhounds that were pierced through turned into ashes and scattered in all directions, causing the magic stones and dropped items in their bodies to fall to the ground. Precision. Incomparable precision. The seemingly endless rain of weapons pierced through the heads of the hellhounds without missing a beat. Not only did they achieve the effect of killing the hellhounds, but they also didn't damage the magic stones and dropped items in their bodies. It was truly miraculous. But even so, the group of hellhounds didn't show any signs of confusion or hesitation, as they continued to pounce forward, trampling on the path of their fallen companions and charging forward relentlessly. If the dungeon monsters didn't turn into ashes when they were killed, leaving only magic stones and dropped items, the hellhounds wouldn't be trampling on the path of their fallen companions. Instead, they would be trampling on their companions' corpses. Undoubtedly, the hellhounds would die if they took a step forward, but they continued to charge and attack their enemies without any hesitation. They looked extremely crazy. This was also what Noah wanted. At the very least, Noah did not need to worry about the monsters suddenly running away. He only needed to stand in place and keep the gate of Babylon open. That way, he would be able to continuously kill the monsters. Over time, under Noah's frighteningly high killing frequency and luck, the magic stones and dropped items from the hellhounds piled up like sand on the ground in front of him. Normally, when Noah killed a hellhound and dropped magic stones and items, the Gate of Babylon would treat these items as Noah's and automatically recycle them. However, this time, Noah blocked the automatic recovery function of the Gate of Babylon, causing the dropped items to pile up all over the ground. Of course, it wasn't because Noah didn't want them, but because he wanted to let the other reinforcements collect them. About 5 minutes later, the Hellhound army was completely annihilated, leaving behind only a ground full of magic stones, teeth, claws, and other dropped items. Looking at the magic stones and dropped items piled up on the ground, Lily, who was behind Noah, was speechless. This was definitely the first time in Lily's life that she had seen such an efficient way of killing enemies. This was already not an efficiency that could be achieved by a single person. To put it bluntly, unless there was a large team of hundreds or even thousands of people, and all of them had to be at least LV2 adventurers, otherwise it was impossible to achieve the same efficiency. With this kind of efficiency to earn magic stones, why worry about not being able to make a lot of money? What made Lily even more shocked was the number of dropped items. The number of dropped items was almost the same as the number of magic stones, which told Lily that the items that should have been obtained when one was lucky in the past would be dropped by almost every monster on Noah's body. If this level of magic stones and dropped items were to be exchanged for money in the guild's exchange center, the amount of money that could be exchanged would be quite terrifying, if not astronomical, right? Lily didn't know how to react to this at all, and could only stand there for a long time without responding. On the other hand, Noah himself seemed to be the most normal person in front of him. He leaned against the wall, hugged his arms, closed his eyes, and started to take a nap. Pack up the dropped items, then continue. Yes. Lily stammered in response, but her expression was still as stiff as ever. But Lord Noah, I don't know if Lily's backpack can hold so many items. Then pack up the items in front of you first, Noah said without even opening his eyes. This is the 17th floor, and the safety floor of the 18th floor is just below. If your backpack is full, you can just sell it there at a low price. It was indeed a low price. After all, in order to make a profit, those guys who bought magic stones and dropped items in the town on the 18th floor would lower the price to the minimum. However, in the case that the adventurers' backpacks were full, they could only choose to sell it there. Otherwise, even if it was more cost-effective to sell it on the surface, considering the time it would take to return to the surface, it would be better to sell it at a low price on the 18th floor. Hence, under normal circumstances, when the adventurers came to a floor that required a lot of time to travel, they would only have two choices after their backpacks were full. Either they would waste a lot of time and sell the magic stones on the surface, or they would sell it at a low price on the 18th floor, and use the time to continue earning magic stones. When comparing the two options, the latter would usually earn more in the end. Even if the adventurers felt the pinch, they could only choose to sell it on the 18th floor. This was the motive of those scammers in the town on the 18th floor. They purposely set the price so that if they sold it at a low price on the surface, they would earn more in the end. When the adventurers compared the two options, they could only choose to sell it at a low price on the 18th floor. This way they could earn a lot of money. In the past, Noah had the Gate of Babylon to recycle items, so he didn't need to go to the 18th floor to be scammed. But now, because of Lily's matter, Noah didn't care. Anyway, Noah didn't lack the money. Seeing that Noah was leaning against the wall and had no intention of interfering, Lily could only go forward with a complicated expression and pick up the magic stones and dropped items one by one. Dungeon 18th floor. Under Noah's lead, Lily came to a town that was almost entirely made of wood. She came to the exchange shop that sold magic stones and dropped items. This price is too unreasonable. If I were to bring it to the surface, these magic stones and dropped items could be exchanged for at least double the price. Isn't this considered a scam? In a building that was painted with pictures of minotaurs and blue and purple crystals, the signboard was much more gorgeous than the surrounding shops. Lily stared at the shop owner in disbelief, only to receive a snort of disdain from the shop owner. If you don't like it, you can go to another shop. Lily's face was red with anger. That was natural. Which seller wouldn't be angered to death by a purchase price that was more than half the original price? However, it was impossible to continue exploring the dungeon with magic stones and dropped items that couldn't be stored. Moreover, it took a long time to return to the surface. If one didn't want to earn too little from the time spent on the road, they could only sell it here. It was because of this that these guys were so arrogant. It's unbelievable. In the end, Lily, who could only choose to sell her magic stones and dropped items in this shop, walked out with an ashen face and a flustered look. That's why Lily hates adventurers. Every one of them is so greedy. I really don't want to be compared to these guys who only know how to rip people off. Noah sighed. Alright, buy some time and continue exploring. Yes. Lily could only agree gloomily. Chapter 9:17. Just like that, Noah and Lily ran back and forth between the 17th and 18th levels for the entire day. Whenever Lily's backpack was filled with magic stones and dropped items, Noah and Lily would return to the town on the 18th level to clear the magic stones and dropped items. Whenever Lily's backpack was cleared of magic stones and dropped items, Noah and Lily would return to the 17th level to continue their efficient massacre. Under such circumstances, Noah and Lily had gone back and forth between the 17th and 18th levels more than a dozen times. When they estimated that it was almost dark outside, Noah and Lily brought their backpack full of magic stones and dropped items to the guild's exchange shop to sell them. Then they took the receipt from the 18th level and went to the shop owner who sold the magic stones and dropped items cheaply to collect the money. It should be mentioned here that in the 18th floor of the town, all transactions were conducted by bartering or by setting up a voucher. This was because no one would bring so many gold coins while exploring the dungeon. Therefore, unless it was a small transaction that could be transacted on the spot, like the transaction that Noah bought a map on the 18th floor last time, otherwise, once the transaction amount was relatively large, most of the transactions would be in the form of a written agreement. For example, if an adventurer bought an expensive item in the town on the 18th level, the shop owner would leave the adventurer's name and clan tribe coat of arms as collateral, and let the adventurer write a written receipt before handing the item over to the buyer. When the shop owner returned to the surface from the 18th level, he would take the written receipt to the customer's clan tribe to collect the money. If the item was sold to the residents of the 18th level, it would be the exact opposite. The shop owner would write a written receipt and let the customer collect the money from his clan tribe. Noah and Lily had sold a large amount of magic stones and dropped items on the 18th level. So naturally, it was not a transaction that could be carried out on the spot. Therefore, when Noah and Lily returned from the dungeon, they had the written receipt from the shop owner who had bought their magic stones and dropped items. After returning to the surface, they immediately went to the other party's clan tribe to collect the money. Thus, after a whole day of hard work, the two of them reaped an astonishing harvest. At least, after receiving the money and coming out of the base camp, Lily was stunned when she saw the two big money bags full of gold coins in her arms. She didn't react for quite a while. In the end, Lily could only murmur in her sleep, 1,280,000 Varus. 1,280,000 Varus. This was Noah's and Lily's harvest after a day. You're lying, right? Lily tightly hugged the big purse full of gold coins. She was in a trance. He can earn so much in just one day? If it weren't for those guys on the 18th floor, it would have been even more. Noah glanced at the dazed Lily and shook his head. If you think it's not real, you can go and bite it when you get home to confirm it. Half of it is yours. Lily finally reacted. She turned to look at Noah and asked with uncertainty, half of it is mine? Lord Noah, do you really intend to give half to Lily? Why? Noah shrugged. If you think it's too little, then I'll take a little less. Originally, Noah had spent an entire day running back and forth between the 17th and 18th floors because of Lily. Although he didn't know what difficulties Lily had, it was certain that this child was in need of money. Ever since he obtained the Gate of Babylon, Noah had become richer than anyone else. In addition, even if the gold and silver treasures in the Gate of Babylon were used up, the treasure vault would treat them as consumables and automatically replenish them. No matter how much Noah used them, he would never be able to use up all the treasures in there. In this way, Noah would no longer have any monetary problems. Therefore, Noah could actually directly help Lily solve her monetary problems. However, if he were to use such a method to help Lily, who was extremely disgusted with adventurers, it would definitely hurt her little bit of self-esteem. It would make Lily think that Noah, the highest level adventurer who could compete with Aureli's only LV7, was pitying her. In order to prevent Lily from having such thoughts, Noah chose to use such a strenuous method to help Lily. Of course, for today's harvest, Noah actually didn't want to take it. He just felt that if he didn't take it, it would be no different from directly giving money to Lily. It was very likely that it would make Lily take it too hard, which was why he wanted to help Lily in the form of a disguised form of dividends. In any case, Lily didn't know that Noah had a Gate of Babylon that could automatically recycle items and would never be full no matter how many items were stored in it. Then there was nothing wrong with letting Lily receive the bonus as a supporter, right? The facts proved that Noah's idea was indeed correct. Is Lord Noah pitying Lily? Lily lowered her head, and her voice was more or less filled with a trace of malice. What did Lily do to deserve so much bonus? Why not? Noah said indifferently. We formed a team to enter the dungeon today. According to the team rules, isn't it normal to split the loot equally? But Lily is only a porter. At most, I'm only picking up items. It's all because of Lord Noah's hard work that I have such a huge harvest. Lily hugged the money bag tightly, and her voice started to have obvious emotions. If it were other adventurers, not to mention splitting the loot, wouldn't it be possible for them to monopolize the loot? Upon hearing that, Noah suddenly laughed. You said it yourself, it's other adventurers. Lily choked. Was Noah rebutting Lily's previous thoughts? None of the adventurers in that world were good people. All in all, we'll split today's harvest in half. You can take 640,000 Varus. Noah made such a decision without any hesitation. I only want to know if you're still short of money? Lily was silent for a while before speaking with a complicated expression. I think it's still not enough? Is it? Noah shrugged his shoulders. If that's the case, tomorrow at the same time, let's gather in front of the fountain in the central plaza. After saying that, Noah took a purse from Lily's arms and slung it over his shoulder. He then waved his hand and walked in another direction. Looking at Noah's back view, Lily hugged the money bag tightly, and her gaze became more and more complicated. Undoubtedly, he's a tyrant. Why is he so gentle to Lily? Lily, I don't understand. Lily, who was muttering, didn't notice. In a corner not far away, a few male adventurers were hiding there. They clearly saw the money bag full of gold coins in Lily's arms. They looked at each other, and the corner of their mouth curved into a rather ferocious arc. The next day, at the same time as yesterday, Noah went straight out of the door and walked in the direction of the central plaza. The surrounding people were still pointing at Noah and gossiping about him as usual. Under the awe and curiosity of almost everyone on the street, Noah walked into the central plaza as if it had nothing to do with him and came to the front of the fountain. To Noah's surprise, Lily wasn't waiting here today. What's the matter? Noah frowned. Did that child give up? As soon as this sentence fell, a cheerful voice sounded behind Noah. Sir Noah is really rude. How could Lily leave the team without Sir Noah's consent? Hearing this cheerful voice, Noah turned his head and looked behind him. He immediately saw the petite girl carrying a big backpack. Today, the indifference and vigilance on Lily's face disappeared. Just like the first time they met, there was a sunflower-like smile on her face. Good morning, Sir Noah. I'm really sorry to have kept you waiting. Looking at the cheerful smile on Lily's face, Noah's eyes flickered. Chapter 9:18. Noah narrowed his eyes and said straightforwardly when he saw Lily smiling as cheerfully and adorably as when they met for the first time. What happened? What do you mean, what happened? Lily tilted her head with a puzzled look. What happened to Lily? Noah didn't say anything and just stared at Lily. When they met for the first time, Lily was also as cheerful and cute as she was now. However, at that time Lily was simply acting cheerful and cute. There wasn't even a trace of innocence in her eyes. Instead, there was an extremely deep malice hidden in them. Lily today was the same as at that time. She was acting the same on the surface, but her heart wasn't as lively and cheerful as she looked on the surface. If he still couldn't determine what happened to Lily that led to such an attitude, then Noah should go home, wash up, and sleep. However, Lily clearly didn't intend to explain, nor did she intend to open her heart to Noah. By the way, Sir Noah, Lily wants to apologize to you here. Saying that, Lily lowered her head to Noah. Today, can you please give Lily a day off? A day off? Noah raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Aren't you short on money? Why don't you push away the job that can earn you at least a few 100,000 Varus a day? That can't be helped. Lily's smile didn't diminish. Although Lily feels very pained, today is the monthly gathering of Lily's clan tribe. If Lily is absent, it will cause a lot of trouble. Gathering? Noah asked. What gathering? Rather than calling it a gathering, it's better to call it a press conference for the mission. Lily touched her head. Simply put, it's a notice that requires the people in the clan tribe to earn a certain amount of money every month and hand it in. So everyone has to be present. The so-called clan tribe was originally established in exchange for the power called favor to pay for the chief god's food, drink, and entertainment. Although there were chief gods like Hestia and Loki who valued and loved the members of the clan tribe as their own family and children, it didn't mean that the other gods were like this. Even Loki had to make the members of the clan tribe hand in the harvest of the clan tribe activities regularly for the operating expenses of the clan tribe. Since it belonged to a clan tribe, it was natural to collect funds from the income of the clan tribe members. Could it be that Lily was so short of money because of the clan tribe? Everyone has to hand in the set amount of money? Noah said without batting an eyelid. Then people who don't have the ability to earn money will have a hard time? Yeah, Lily said jokingly. Especially for a supporter like Lily, that's even more needless to say. Lily, who had been talking to Noah as if she was pretending from the beginning, only when she said this sentence did her tone finally carry the same emotion as yesterday. It was an emotion called hatred and disgust. Noah, who clearly noticed this, withdrew his gaze from Lily and said indifferently, "In that case, let's forget about it today." "Thank you very much, Lord Noah." Lily bowed her head again and expressed her gratitude to Noah. Then she smiled as brightly as a sunflower and said to Noah, "Thank you for your help. I hope that tomorrow, Lord Noah can continue to employ Lily. If that's the case, Lily will be very happy." Leaving this sentence, Lily turned around and walked in the direction of one of the streets. Moreover, her footsteps seemed to be a little hurried. It was not until this moment that the faint smile on Noah's face disappeared bit by bit. He glanced at the bushes at the side. Rustle. In the direction of Noah's line of sight, the bushes swayed a few times and made a sound. Not long after, from the inside of the thicket, several blurry black shadows appeared from behind the trees that were used as cover and left in another direction. Seeing this, Noah's expression more or less carried a hint of coldness. "It seems that things are much more complicated than I thought." When the sun rose to the highest point and announced the arrival of noon, in the northernmost part of Orly, in front of a building located on the side of a road that was a little remote from the main street, Noah came here. Looking up, Noah cast his gaze at the building in front of him. It was a long and large mansion. The area of the mansion was not large, but the scale was quite magnificent. As for why this mansion seemed to want to expand, but because of the narrow area, it couldn't do so. As a result, it couldn't extend to the side, but could only develop upward. So several towers were built together like a forest of spears, forming a mountain-like building. From Noah's direction it was very clear. Behind the gate of the strange building that occupied a narrow area but was unusually tall, there was only a small courtyard with a few plants and flower beds. In the center of the tower-like buildings, the top part of the tallest tower was dyed with the color of dusk, like a mansion carved by flames. Looking at the strange building, Noah blinked. This is the headquarters of the Loki's clan? Noah hasn't been here before. Therefore, Noah only knew that the headquarters of the Loki's clan, one of the two kings of Orly, was here. Now that he saw it, Noah was even more certain that this was the headquarters of the Loki's clan. Because, except for a god with a strange temperament like Loki, no one would want to build a building like this. Immediately, Noah walked in the direction of the gate. Next to the gate there were two guards. When one of the guards saw Noah coming directly here, he immediately raised the spear in his hand and pointed it in the direction of Noah. "Stop!" As soon as he shouted, the other guard fiercely pulled his companion and scolded in a low voice. "Are you crazy? Look at who that guy is." "Huh." The guard saw Noah's appearance clearly, and his eyes widened. "Tyrant." Ignoring the nervous look of the two guards, Noah stepped forward and said, "Can you help me call Loki out?" Hearing Noah's words, the two guards became even more nervous. Loki, what do you want to do?" It was no wonder that the two guards were so nervous. Originally, there were many factional problems between the clan and the clan, which made the clan of the gods wary of each other under normal circumstances. Now, not long ago, Noah had single-handedly taken care of a god of Apollo. Now Noah, who was at the peak of his power in Eulalia's world, directly stated that he wanted to meet the god of Apollo. "I have something to ask of your clan's god." Noah shrugged. "If it's convenient, you can help me pass the message." If it had been someone else, the two guards would have probably beaten them up. But Noah was extremely popular among the gods, and even the two clan gods of Loki and Freya's clan wanted to recruit him. This was something that everyone in Eulalia knew. The two guards looked at each other, and then one of them nodded and said to Noah, "Let's go." Noah said to him, "Please wait here for a moment." Noah naturally had no objection and nodded in agreement. The two guards breathed a sigh of relief and let one of them enter the door to pass the message. After some time there was a commotion at the door. When the door was opened, a figure flew out from the door and pounced on Noah. Little guy. You finally changed your mind. Are you going to leave that poor little shorty? I'm so touched. Shouting such a sentence, the divine creature named Loki directly pounced on Noah. In the face of Loki's fierce pounce, Noah just calmly turned around. Loki suddenly missed and fell to the ground. Bang! After a loud noise, Loki's face hit the ground heavily. Loki howled in pain, covered his red nose and rolled on the ground. Chapter 9:19. Nose. Nose. Lying on the ground, Loki rolled on the ground while covering his nose. There were tears in his eyes, and he looked like he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. As expected of the tyrant, he actually dodged it. No, it was so obvious. I think most people would be able to dodge it. Noah sighed as he couldn't bear to look directly at Loki, who was rolling on the ground with half-closed eyes. "Okay, stop fooling around. Get up quickly." "Oh, so cold." Loki reluctantly got up from the ground. "Sure enough, now is the time to be arrogant. Can't you be delicate?" Noah's face twitched. "I really want to give this guy a good beating." "Oh? Little brother is really here. Welcome to our base camp, little brother." With these two voices, another group of people walked out of the gate of the Loki's base camp. The two Amazon sisters, Tiona and Tiona, were leading the group with a smile on their faces as they greeted Noah. Behind the Amazon sisters, Finn, Reveria, Gareth, and Rafia followed. Even the werewolf, Bert, smacked his lips when he saw Noah and looked unhappy. At the back of these people, there was a beautiful girl with dazzling waist-length hair. A pair of clear eyes stared at Noah. Her delicate and pretty face was still the same as before, without any expression on her face. At this point, all the senior members of the Loki's clan, one of the two kings of Eulalie, were present. Even Loki was present. The scene was quite spectacular. "Long time no see." As the leader, Finn stepped forward and said to Noah with a look of surprise, "Although I knew that you would sooner or later amaze the world, I didn't expect that in just over a month, you have already made such a big name in Eulalie. It's really surprising. We watched the entire battle between you and Apollo's minions. It was truly amazing." Reveria also seemed to be a little emotional. That spell that destroyed an entire city in an instant was really powerful. If it was me, I wouldn't be able to reach that level yet. Even so, I'm still sitting on the seat of Eulalie's strongest archmage. It's really embarrassing. It's not just magic. His battle prowess is also amazing. Gareth laughed. "You can even go head-to-head with Eulalie's ultimate weapon. To be honest, even I want to duel with you." As soon as they met, the three leaders of Loki's clan gave a great evaluation of Noah. However, no one present found it strange. After all, during the war game, Noah's performance was seen by everyone in Eulalia. Even the gods praised Noah. As a person from the lower realm, who could make a negative criticism of Noah's performance? Not to mention Finn, Reveria, and Gareth, even Tiona, Tyogni, and Leafia were all excitedly and emotionally evaluating Noah. Although Aze didn't say anything, her pair of eyes that were staring at Noah had already revealed her feelings in her heart. Only Bert put his hands in his pockets with a look of disdain. What's there to be surprised about? It's just taking care of a random clan that didn't even have a LV for member. Everyone present was used to Bert's rude remarks, so almost no one paid attention to Bert. This made the displeasure on Bert's face more intense, but he didn't say anything. He turned his head away with an unruly look. "By the way, Reveria also said that you, little guy, seem to be able to use innate magic that doesn't require a specific bloodline. Anyone can learn it, right?" Loki also put his hands in his pockets and looked at Noah. His squinted eyes opened slightly. Could it be that the magic that destroyed the city is also the kind of innate magic that anyone can learn? Loki's profound words made all the higher-ups of Loki's clan turn their eyes to Noah. Obviously, they were also very concerned about this issue. Especially Aze, who looked at Noah with some expectation in her eyes. In this regard, Noah just curled his lips. "Sorry, that's not innate magic. The only magic I can teach people is the crush." Hearing Noah's answer, many people secretly breathed a sigh of relief, including Loki. If the kind of magic that made the gods feel threatened was like the crush magic, a kind of innate magic that could be learned by anyone, just thinking about it made people feel uneasy. At least Loki absolutely didn't want to see the streets full of people learn that kind of magic. Unfortunately, Loki didn't know that it wasn't magic. It was the same level of divine power as the gods, called authority. Naturally, it was impossible for anyone to learn it. Only Ace, whose eyes began to look a little dejected. It was obvious that this girl was interested in the so-called magic that could destroy a city in an instant. If it could be learned, Ace definitely wouldn't mind asking Noah for advice, right? Okay, little guy. Loki said to Noah with a sloppy attitude. You didn't come all the way here just to chat with us, did you? Oh, Noah said with a smile. Didn't you just think that I was going to leave Hestia's clan and come to you? If you were so easy to poach, that love-struck fool wouldn't have hit the wall like that, and Apollo wouldn't have disintegrated his entire clan because of you. Loki tilted his head and looked straight at Noah with a pair of eyes that were hidden under his narrowed eyelids. What? Do you need something from me? Yes. Noah didn't hide it anymore and said directly. I want to ask you something about Sumo's clan. Sumo's clan. Led by Finn, a group of high-ranking members of Loki's clan looked at each other. Noah's clan? Loki was slightly startled and looked at Noah with some suspicion. You just got rid of Apollo's clan, and this time another Sumo's clan has offended you? It's best if that's the case. That way things will be easier to solve. Noah sighed. I just recently met a child in Sumo's clan, and was a little concerned about some of the actions of that child. As far as Noah knew, there was no high-end combat power in Sumo's clan, not even a LV3. The entire clan was composed of LV1 and LV2 members. However, although the members of this clan did not have high-end combat power, the number of members was quite large, so in terms of power, it could be regarded as the backbone of the entire Urieli clan. To put it bluntly, in terms of the overall strength of the clan, Sumo's clan was above Apollo's clan. Why would such a clan allow a member to do such a thing of theft? In other words, Lily's actions really had something to do with Sumo's family clan? This was what Noah wanted to know. Unfortunately, Hestia, who had not been in the lower realm for long, did not know much about Sumo's clan. That was why Noah came here, intending to inquire from Loki. After hearing Noah's words, Loki raised his eyebrows. You have dealings with the people in Sumo's clan? Loki said. That's not a good thing. Not a good thing. Noah was startled. What do you mean? Loki crossed his arms and closed his eyes. After pondering for a while, he immediately dropped his shoulders as if he had given up. Forget it. I'm not familiar with Sumo anyway, so there's no need to help him hide the secret of his clan. If you want to know, it's okay to tell you. The secret of the clan tribe? Noah narrowed his eyes and nodded. Tell me. Let's go in first. Loki walked directly in the direction of his base camp. It's not very convenient to talk here. Noah naturally did not have any objections. Together with the higher-ups of Loki's clan, he followed behind Loki and walked into the base camp of Loki's clan. AIC, who was walking next to Noah, suddenly spoke softly. Congratulations, you've won Apollo's spawn. Hearing this, Noah smiled. Chapter 9:20. Under Loki's lead, Noah entered a reception room that directly faced the corridor of the mansion. It was a vast room with an expensive-looking sofa and a round table covered with a tablecloth. The surrounding decorations were filled with a high-class feeling. At first glance, rather than saying that this was a reception room, it would be better to say that it was a lounge used by the members of the clan when they were having a leisurely chat. The evidence was that after AIC and the others entered the room, each of them naturally found a seat and sat down. By the way, the three leaders of Loki's clan, Finn, Riveria and Gareth, seemed to have put down their work to greet Noah when they heard that Noah was visiting. Now the three leaders had left and went back to do their own work. In addition to Finn, Riveria and Gareth, Bert suddenly disappeared halfway and did not even leave behind an explanation. It seemed that he did not want to continue staying with Noah. Therefore, other than Noah, only AIC, Rafia, Tiona, and Tioni followed Loki to the reception room. After sitting down at Loki's invitation, Rafia made a cup of black tea and placed it in front of Noah. Please have some tea. Thank you. Noah smiled at Rafia. As a result, Rafia's pretty face turned red and she pulled away from Noah in a panic. She hid beside Tiona and Tioni and behind AIC, which made Noah quite puzzled and made Tiona and Tioni snicker. Oh, Loki also snickered. It seems that our Lord Tyrant's smile is quite lethal to young girls in their prime. It's not like that. Rufia protested loudly but was ignored by everyone present. Forget about the teasing. Hurry up and tell me about Sumo's clan. Noah took a sip of black tea and looked at Loki. You just said that it's not a good thing to have dealings with the people in that clan, right? What does it mean? The meaning is very simple. Loki directly crossed his legs on the sofa without any arrogance and said very casually. Because the people in that clan tribe are all very dangerous. Danger. Noah frowned. Don't keep me in suspense, hurry up and tell me clearly. Well, don't be so impatient. Before that, you have to know what kind of person the main god in the clan is. Loki shrugged. What kind of god do you think the main god in Sumo's clan, that is Sumo himself, is? What kind of god? Noah scratched his cheek. I heard that he seems to be a very solitary god. He never attends any public places and only hides in the headquarters of the clan tribe, to manage the clan tribe. This was something that anyone who was slightly well-informed would know. Noah also got the information from hearsay. However, this news should be correct. As for why, Hestia once said that she almost forgot that there was such a person among the gods. His presence was pitifully faint. Solitary? Loki curled his lips. If you want to talk about being eccentric, that guy is indeed very eccentric. But little guy, there's one thing you're wrong about. That guy only hides in the base camp of the family clan, and is not managing the family clan. Or rather, from the beginning, Sumo never thought of managing the family clan, right? Huh. Noah was puzzled. From the beginning, he never thought about managing the clan tribe? Among the gods, this is something that almost everyone knows. Only your little shorty who hasn't been in the lower realm for long doesn't know. Loki snorted softly. I'll just say it directly. That god Sumo doesn't have his own clan tribe in his head at all. He only has his own interests. At this point, Loki mentioned it to Noah, intentionally or unintentionally. You should have heard that in addition to exploring the underground city, Sumo's clan tribe also has some commercial nature. When Loki mentioned it, Noah also remembered. Are you referring to wine? Yes, wine. The most famous thing about Sumo's clan tribe is that they sell wine, and it's very good wine. When it came to wine, Loki's mood was a little high. That silly god's biggest interest is brewing wine, or rather, that's his only interest. The reason why he established the clan tribe was to let the children help him earn the money needed to brew wine. The problem lies in this wine. Loki spread his hands. You probably don't know, right? The wine of Sumo's clan tribe circulating in the market is just a failure. A failure? Noah was stunned. Although he had never drunk that wine, if the wine of Sumo's clan tribe was so famous, it proved that the wine's taste must be extraordinary. And that was just a failure? It's hard to believe, isn't it? I found it hard to believe at first. Loki seemed to recall the taste and could not help but lick his lips. Only those who have really tasted the wine will know how magical the taste of the wine called a failure is. Even the taste of the failure is so beautiful, the taste of the finished product can be imagined. Although I haven't drunk it, I have heard some of my friends say that the wine of the finished product, we all call it the divine wine. If you drink it, you will be drunk. Loki opened a pair of narrowed eyes, and a bright light flashed from those wise eyes. It's not the kind of drunkenness that makes you drunk, but the kind of drunkenness that intoxicates you from the bottom of your heart. It's like taking drugs, it's addictive. Hearing this, Noah's eyes suddenly narrowed. Could it be? It seems that you've almost understood, Loki said, speechless. That's right, almost all of the clan tribe of that silly god have tasted the divine wine. His people don't worship Sumo, the main god, but the wine he brewed. That guy is a real pervert. He only used the development of materials, blending, and production to make the divine wine, without using the power of God at all. Making the divine wine with human hands, that's something that only people with mysterious abilities can do, which is the so-called miracle. Loki's tone carried a little awe. In the end, Sumo made the miraculous wine in the state of an ordinary person that only mysterious abilities can make. If that's not perverted, then what is? That kind of thing, it doesn't matter. Noah's brows were deeply furrowed. Sumo actually used that wine, which is no different from drugs, for the people of the clan tribe to use? There's something wrong with your statement. No, it should be said that my previous expression was a little wrong, Loki explained. Although it can make people drunk at best, it's just wine. It can't be called a drug. Although it can bring people unimaginable pleasure, there's no harm in it. After a period of time, they will naturally wake up, just like how drunk people will eventually wake up. High-level adventurers can greatly increase their resistance to that kind of intoxication, so it's very difficult for people of LV2 and above to get drunk. It's also because of this that the fool took out the divine wine in order to satisfy his own interests and let the members under him earn money. Loki's tone was a little unhappy. In order to increase the enthusiasm of the members of the clan tribe to earn money, that fool took out the divine wine as a prize. As long as they earned more than a certain amount of operating expenses set by the clan tribe, they would be able to drink a small mouthful of the divine wine. As for the consequences, it goes without saying, right? Noah was immediately speechless. Even the four girls, Aze, Tiona, Tyagni, and Rafia, began to tremble. What were the consequences? Did it even need to be said? After tasting the divine wine, the members of Sumo's clan tribe, who were captured by the divine wine, would want to taste it again no matter what. And because only those who earned more than a certain amount of operating expenses could receive the divine wine as a reward, it naturally turned these people into people who crazily pursued money like gamblers. You have dealings with the people of Sumo's clan tribe, right? Loki looked straight at Noah. Then you have to be careful. Otherwise, even if it's you, you'll be pestered by those crazy people. Noah fell silent. Did that child also want to get money for this purpose? Chapter 9:21. Chirp, 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 chirp. Amidst the melodious chirping of birds, the dark sky was slowly dyed white. Flocks of birds flew past the towering Tower of Babel, filling the air with the freshness of the morning. Passing through the familiar West Street, Noah walked into the central square and immediately looked at the fountain in front of him. Heavily armed adventurers and supporters carrying huge backpacks passed by the entrance of the towering Tower of Babel. None of them stayed for long and walked straight to the entrance of the towering Tower of Babel. However, Noah did not see the petite figure carrying a huge backpack that was completely disproportionate to her body size. Today, Noah did not come early or late. Just like the day before yesterday, he left at the same time and arrived at the central square at the same time. Logically speaking, Lily should have already arrived. Undoubtedly, she said she would come yesterday, but she was still not here today. In other words, in the 3 days since he decided to team up with Lily, except for the first day, Lily did not meet at the fountain according to the agreed time yesterday and today. If it was the first day, Noah might have thought that Lily had given up the opportunity he gave her. But now Noah did not have such thoughts. He walked directly to the fountain and stood quietly at the spot where Lily had been waiting for him on the first day. Around them, the adventurers were intimidated by Noah's tyrant reputation. Although they frequently turned their gazes to Noah's side, they were still whispering and pointing at him. However, no one chose to step forward and cast awe and curiosity in Noah's direction. In this regard, Noah just turned a blind eye as usual and quietly waited for the arrival of the dwarf girl. It was not until almost half an hour later that a shocked voice entered Noah's ears. Lord Noah? Hearing this voice, Noah opened his eyes and turned his head to the side. There, the little human girl with a huge backpack on her back was staring at Noah with her eyes wide open, filled with shock and confusion. Why? Noah raised his eyebrows. What, why? Why is Lord Noah still waiting here? Lily reacted, and the smile on her face began to become a little stubborn. Didn't Lord Noah say that if Lily wasn't here when you came, Lord Noah wouldn't wait for Lily? Indeed. 3 days ago, Noah had met Lily, who had stolen a male adventurer's greatsword in an alley, and was being chased by the male adventurer. He had saved Lily from the male adventurer, and made an agreement with Lily to form a team. Noah had said that if Lily wasn't here when he came, he wouldn't wait any longer. However, at that time, Noah only wanted to give Lily a chance, an opportunity to achieve his goal. Because Lily was also a person with a story, as long as he spent a little time and effort, he would be able to give a young girl a new lease of life. Noah didn't mind wasting this insignificant period of time. But if Lily didn't come at that time and gave up the opportunity, Noah wouldn't force it. After all, it was Lily's choice. But it was different now. Back then, we were only considered as people who had met once or twice. Because you seemed to be a person with a story and difficulties, I chose to give you a chance. If you didn't seize the opportunity, I wouldn't continue to interfere, Noah said as if it was a matter of fact. And now, I've fully involved your matter. So, it isn't my style to not do it to the end. Fully involved Lily's matter? Lily's eyes glinted, but the forced smile on her face was still there. Lily doesn't quite understand Lord Noah's words. What do you mean? Noah didn't answer. He only smiled and said such a sentence. Compared to that, Lily, don't you have anything to say about being late? I'm sorry. Lily fell silent for a moment and lowered her head. Lily is late. And? Noah asked unyieldingly. What's the reason for being late? Today, Lord Noah feels very unyielding. Lily's smile began to be tinged with a trace of anxiety. Lily was only delayed by the matters of the clan tribe. Didn't Lily apologize to Lord Noah here? But, rather than an apology, I want to know the specific reason. Noah looked into Lily's eyes. Or did you not think of a reason at all? You were deliberately late, hoping that I would leave and give up on continuing to team up with you? The bright sunflower-like smile on Lily's face froze on her face. Even her tone became stubborn. Lord Noah, what are you talking about? Lee, how could Lily deliberately give up the opportunity to make a lot of money with Lord Noah? Make a lot of money? Noah suddenly laughed. The amount of money we've earned is really not much, is it? Lord Noah, what kind of joke is this? Lily could not help but laugh. Earning millions of Varus in a day, this kind of harvest is not much? Then what is considered a lot? No matter how much it is, it's only the two of us who are earning. It can't be compared to those who are really making a lot of money. Noah shrugged. For example, the wine that your Sumo's clan tribe is selling. I heard that it's only a bottle, and the market price is at least 60,000 Varus. Moreover, that wine seems to be a failed product. If you sell the finished product, then you'll really make a lot of money, right? The smile on Lily's face had gradually faded, and it was replaced by an unconcealable heaviness. She lowered her head and said so. Lord Noah knows a lot. He even knows that the wine sold in the market is a failed product. I just heard about it from a friend. Noah did not seem to notice Lily's abnormality. He crossed his arms and said so with a smile. Lily wants to make a lot of money? Then why don't we also sell wine? Lord Noah is joking again. Lily smiled unnaturally. Even if it's a failure, that wine is still a high-quality wine circulated in the market using a portion of the main god Sumo's wine. Even if Lily and Lord Noah really went to sell wine, they wouldn't be able to make better wine than that. They wouldn't be able to make much money at all. Hearing Lily's words, Noah just smiled indifferently. That's not necessarily true. Lily was stunned by his words. Ignoring Lily's gaze, Noah stretched out a hand. Buzz! With a slight tremor, a golden ripple fluctuated above Noah's outstretched hand, spitting out a pure gold bottle, which fell into Noah's hand. It was a very strange bottle. Undoubtedly, it was a bottle made of pure gold, but the bottle was transparent all over, allowing people to clearly see the scarlet liquid swaying in the bottle. This is... Lily was a little confused. Wine. Noah didn't beat around the bush and directly explained. Although it's not the wine brewed by the Lord God of your clan tribe, this is a veritable divine wine. Divine wine. Lily had a bad premonition in her heart. Lord Noah, are you kidding me? I'm not kidding. This is indeed wine brewed by God, Noah said lightly. If I tell you about Bacchus, the god of wine in Roman mythology, you may not know what's going on. You only need to know that similar to Hephaestus, who was known as the god of forging in heaven, Bacchus was also a god of wine like Sumo. This wine was brewed by that god of wine, so it is a veritable divine wine. With such a sentence, Noah unscrewed the cap of the pure gold but incredibly transparent wine bottle. Pop! With the clear sound of the bottle opening, in the next moment, a fragrance that could be seen directly with the naked eye spread out from the pure gold wine bottle. It was a sweet wine fragrance that was completely different from the aroma of other wines. When they smelled this wine, many people in the central square stopped in their tracks and turned their gazes over. Chapter 922. When the sweet aroma of the wine spread throughout the central square, the surrounding adventurers and supporters who were aiming for the dungeon of the Tower of Babel all stopped in their tracks subconsciously. Their faces were more or less flushed. Some people were already drunk just by smelling the aroma of the wine. Of course, it did not mean that they were drunk, but as Loki said, they were intoxicated. Unlike the surrounding people who revealed intoxicated expressions, Lily's face turned ghastly pale the moment she smelled the aroma of the wine. Lily had only smelled a wine with such an intoxicating aroma from one kind of wine. That was the divine wine brewed by the Lord God in Sumo's clan, with a miraculous production method that was similar to the mysterious development ability of humans. Although the taste of the wine was different, the inconceivable power that could intoxicate one's heart in an instant was completely carved from the same mold. Therefore, when she smelled the intoxicating aroma of the wine, Lily did not become intoxicated like the people around her. Instead, she began to slowly retreat, and her pretty face kept turning pale. At this moment, Lily no longer doubted Noah's words. There was no doubt that the bottle of wine in Noah's hand was not inferior to the divine wine made by Sumo in terms of quality, taste, and wonder. This is the wine made by Bacchus, the god of wine in Roman mythology. Therefore, that god is also known as the god of wine. It was as if Noah didn't see Lily's reaction at all. His empty hand reached into the golden ripples that had yet to disappear, and he took out a wine glass made of pure gold. He then poured the wine that was filled with an intoxicating aroma into the glass. Legend has it that the wine brewed by the god of wine, Bacchus, has a strange effect of intoxicating people. Just a small sip will make people feel as if they are in heaven. I haven't tasted Sumo's divine wine, but I can guarantee that this wine will never lose to that divine wine, even if it is a finished product. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah placed the wine glass filled with red wine in front of Lily. His deep eyes stared intently at her pale face. You should have tasted Sumo's divine wine. Why don't you have a drink too? Let's see if the divine wine brewed by the god of wine is better than Sumo's divine wine. Is it worth selling? What do you think? At this moment it was as if time had stopped, and Lily felt that even her heart had stopped beating. Smelling the dizzying aroma of the wine and staring at the enchanted wine with its beautiful color, Lily only felt that she was sinking into a bottomless abyss. No! No! That feeling of sinking into depravity made Lily finally unable to hold it in any longer. No, I won't drink. Amid the hysterical screams, Lily almost subconsciously swung her hand and slapped the wine glass in front of her. Slap! After a crisp sound, the wine cup in Noah's hand, which was made of pure gold and had an intoxicating aroma, was directly slapped away by Lily. It smashed to the ground, spilling the beautiful wine all over the floor. The wine cup also rolled to the ground. Ha! Ha! It was only then that Lily seemed to have escaped from a nightmare. Her body went soft, and she sat on the ground, panting with a dazed expression. From the beginning to the end, Noah didn't interfere with Lily's actions, nor did he care about the priceless grape wine and wine goblets that were sent flying by Lily. He merely stared at Lily, who was slumped on the ground, and said word by word, "Don't worry about it. Are you afraid? Are you afraid of the divine wine? Or are you afraid of everything that the divine wine will bring to you?" Lily's lips trembled. She raised her head, and there was an expression on her pale face as if she was about to cry. She choked out, "Lily doesn't want to drink this wine anymore. I really don't want to." Lily's reaction made Noah understand one thing. At the very least, Lily didn't steal and rob to raise money for the so-called divine wine. In other words, Lily not only had no interest in the crazy divine wine of Sumo's clan, but she also had a fear of it. Noah was not wrong. Lily was afraid. She was afraid that as long as she came into contact with the aroma of the divine wine, she would be manipulated by the magic of the divine wine, like a beast, and become a slave to money and madness. Loki said that although Sumo's divine wine had the effect of intoxicating people, it was still just wine after all. Even if one was drunk, sooner or later they would still wake up. However, with Sumo treating the divine wine as a prize, if the people of his clan became crazy after tasting the divine wine and desperately tried to raise money, and then continued to drink the divine wine that could confuse people's hearts, They would continue to be captured by the divine wine and become slaves to money. As a result, they would naturally fall into an absolute loop, and there would be no way to get out of it for the rest of their lives. There were only two kinds of people who could get rid of the charm of the divine wine. One was the high-level adventurer who had successfully risen to LV2 and could greatly resist the magic brought about by the divine wine. The other was the person who could not earn enough money and could not get the divine wine as a prize. Over time, as the effects of the divine wine passed, they would wake up. Lily once confessed that she did not have the talent to be an adventurer. Because of her lack of ability, she finally chose to become a professional supporter. Then Lily was very likely the latter. Undoubtedly, you have already gotten rid of the magic of the divine wine, so why are you still raising money at all costs? Noah half knelt and looked directly into Lily's eyes. Why don't you tell me the reason? Lily. Because of the divine wine, Lily's heart seemed to have become timid, and she could not help but speak in a sobbing voice. Lily just wants to use a lot of money as an exchange to beg Suemo to let Lily leave the clan. You raised the money in order to leave the clan tribe? The unexpected answer made Noah a little surprised. Noah had imagined various reasons for Lily to raise the money. However, Noah really did not think that it would be such a reason. However, if what Lily said was true, then it was possible. To put it in an extreme, everything in the god's family was basically the property of the Lord God, including the people themselves. Once they joined the clan of a god, unless the main god agreed, if they left the clan without permission, it would be a small matter if they did not get the ability value update, but it would be a big matter if they became a character on the blacklist of the clan and were hunted down by the clan. Noah had even heard that this kind of person who left the clan without permission, once their usual behavior was too easy to cause bad effects, it was very likely that even the guild would hunt them down. And this kind of person who left the clan without permission was basically impossible for the main gods of other clans to accept. The first reason was that without the consent of the Lord God of the previous spawn, there was no way for other gods to drop their divine blood into the body of a person who already had the grace of another god to renew their ability value. Firstly, it was because no one knew when this person would betray the clan tribe and leave on his own. Therefore, this kind of person would usually become a rat crossing the street. Not only would everyone want to beat them up, they could only live on the streets, and no one would be willing to take them in. It was because of this that Lily wanted to exchange for the consent of the main god by gathering things that would move his heart, right? After all, what Suemo wanted most was money. That way, he could continue with the winemaking operation that would consume a lot of money. However, there was a problem here. Why? Noah asked aloud. Why do you want to leave the clan? Although Sumo's clan had various problems, it was not enough to make people want to leave at all costs, right? Even if they were afraid of the divine wine, wouldn't it be fine if they did not taste the divine wine? Could it be that Suemo would force others to drink the divine wine? Lily trembled all over and bit her lip tightly, as if she had found an outlet to vent, and clear tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. What Lily wants has nothing to do with Master Noah. After saying this, Lily stood up before Noah could react and fled into the bushes next to her. Wait! Noah was shocked. Without hesitation, he chased after him.